It is said that by the time they graduate from the Kimberly Academy of Magic, 20% of its enrolled students have been consumed by magic. For this reason, Oliver walked the hallways feeling anxious. He was stopped by a Jack Flower, which asked him why he was so tense and suggested that he relax a bit, assuring him that he was bound for a terrible future anyway. Oliver thought to himself that this seemed like something they tell all new students at the academy. As he walked on, he was surprised to see Katie standing in the middle of the path, talking to herself about that terrible future the flower had mentioned. Guy approached her and advised her not to worry about what the talking plants said, as they absorbed magical particles from the ground, which influenced their personalities. He explained that the magical plants at the academy were particularly nasty. Katie replied that she didn't know much about magical plants, but she loved magical animals. Guy asked her which ones she liked specifically, and she said she loved all of them, big and small, even the slimy ones. Meanwhile, as Oliver listened to their conversation, Sheila appeared and scolded Pete for not watching where he was going, nearly stepping on someone's leg. She asked him what charge that lady would have made against him. Suddenly, a samurai passed by, and everyone looked at her curiously, admiring her strange outfit. Before long, the academy showcased a parade of magical creatures. Guy exclaimed that it was the first time he saw a dragon, and Oliver told him that what he was seeing was a Fafnir, a creature with shiny scales. Guy commented that Oliver seemed knowledgeable about many things. Oliver replied that he only knew what he had read in encyclopedias. Guy then turned to Katie and asked if she didn't say she liked animals. Katie confirmed it, mentioning that they made the troll walk during the parade just like the other magical beasts. Guy informed her that trolls didn't speak their language anyway, and the wild ones attacked people, so they always needed to be tamed. Katie retorted that it was humans who invaded the trolls' territory, but in reality, they were kind creatures at heart. Guy replied that they spoiled his town's fields every year, and Katie justified that the land of those fields originally belonged to them. In that moment, Pete's voice interrupted, asking them to stop talking since they were hindering his reading. Katie apologized, and Pete continued reading, noting that the griffin in front of him had wings different from what was described in the book. Then, Oliver suggested they at least introduce themselves to each other, but suddenly, a magical spell struck Katie, causing her to run at full speed toward the troll, which had become agitated for some reason. During this time, Oliver and Guy ran after her, wondering what was happening, while Katie cried that she couldn't control her feet and didn't know what was happening. Suddenly, the magical knot released, and Katie fell to the ground in front of the troll, which was preparing to pounce on her. Just as Katie was about to surrender to the troll, the samurai stepped in front of it and commanded it to stop. She then turned to Katie and asked if she could run. Katie shook her head, and the samurai said it was okay, drawing her sword to the astonishment of everyone, who wondered if the samurai was going to fight the troll. Their heroes started to think about how to divert the troll's attention toward them using magical spells, saying that the samurai's fight with the troll felt like suicide, but they were unsuccessful, so Oliver suggested using strong winds and directing them at the troll before defeating it afterward. They actually followed through with that, conjuring winds, and Oliver made a small adjustment, using a fake dragon roar to sound like a real one. It successfully distracted the troll. The samurai then leaped up, bringing her sword down suddenly on the troll's head, making it fall to the ground in disbelief. The samurai turned to everyone, expressing her surprise that the troll's skull was very hard, feeling like lightning struck her hand. Then she turned to Katie and requested a moment, saying that once her hand stopped tingling, she would carry Katie. Afterward, the samurai thanked our heroes for helping her defeat the troll, saying that the dragon roar was incredibly loud and gave her the perfect opportunity to attack the troll. Everyone then entered the academy's welcoming ceremony. Oliver stood next to the samurai and curiously asked her if she hadn't had a plan for fighting the troll. She replied that she didn't, assuring him that the katana she carried didn't even have a blade. Oliver pointed out that this was reckless of her because if the wind spell had failed, she would have surely died. The samurai conceded that he had a point, but considering it was her first day at the academy and someone had saved her, she saw it as a good omen. At that moment, Oliver drifted off a bit, remembering when the samurai's hair changed color to wild when she jumped to attack the troll, turning into something like crystals through which magical particles flowed. He guessed that she must possess high potential as a sorceress. Suddenly, an announcement was made for the director to take the stage. She introduced herself as Esmeralda and apologized to the students for the incident during the parade, saying they had indeed caught the rampaging troll and treated the injured. The samurai commented that just looking at Esmeralda made her break into a sweat, and she had to be incredibly strong. Esmeralda continued, explaining that they were at the Kimberly Academy of Magic, a destination for students wanting to learn magic for 7 years. However, the academy prioritized two things: freedom and the resulting consequences. She emphasized that only 80% of students graduate from Kimberly successfully, while the remaining 20% find themselves unable to do so when their magic gets out of control, as their lives and deaths were solely in their hands. Once Esmeralda finished her speech, she allowed students to ask questions, but the samurai chimed in that she could spin her head in a circular motion to relieve the pain. Esmeralda inquired if that was a question, to which the samurai innocently replied that it was advice. Oliver asked if she was crazy. Esmeralda then announced that they would now move to the welcoming feast, where they would have the freedom to talk to each other, urging them to eat and drink as they pleased. Then Esmeralda made a random motion with her hand, and all the students flew into the air, finding themselves in another place with tables and food, where older Kimberly students welcomed them, encouraging them to enjoy the delicious white grape juice. Our heroes then reconnected, saying they would finally get to know each other. One of them introduced herself as Michella, the eldest daughter of the McFarlane family, a clan of special distinction that had lived in South Yelgland for ages. She asked them to call her Sheila. Guy then asked if all her family had a curse that made their hair curly in rings. Sheila told him that their hairstyle was a symbol of their family and that he should not make fun of it, assuring him that anyone who saw her for the first time fainted due to the sheer beauty of her style. Then Katie introduced herself, saying she was an exchange student from Varnland, one of the Northern Federations, and a girl who loved magical animals. She thanked them for saving her. Guy asked why she had run toward the trolls so quickly. Katie replied that someone must have been joking with her. Guy then mentioned that he came from a family of magical farmers with a rich history in magic, which is why he knew a lot about magical plants. Then Pete introduced himself, stating that his parents had nothing to do with magic and that his family didn't have a rich history. Sheila commented that he must have enrolled as an ordinary student at Kimberly. Pete said he didn't come to make friends. Oliver then asked if he was reading Alfred Werner's book on defining magic for non-magicians. Pete looked shocked and asked if he knew it. Oliver replied that the short stories between the chapters were fun. Pete agreed, especially highlighting the third chapter about the magical judge. Then Pete realized he hadn't learned Oliver's name yet and introduced himself. Oliver explained that his family had been practicing magic since his grandfather's time, but that he currently lived with his relatives. He had a brother and a sister who were his cousins and also students at Kimberly, who told him about her. Sheila remarked that the dragon roar had surprised her a lot. Oliver replied that he was skilled at tailoring spells and inventing new ways to use them. The samurai then introduced herself, saying she was born as the daughter of a samurai family in Torakisan in the Yamatsukoni state, and her name was Nanao. She shared that she was close to dying in a war until one of the passing sorcerers, who called himself McFarlane, saved her and invited her to Kimberly. Sheila was astonished, and Nanao informed her that McFarlane's hairstyle resembled hers. Sheila then revealed that he was her father and worked part-time as an instructor at Kimberly. However, she hadn't expected him to travel all that way to Izia to recruit new students. At this point, Pete asked Nanao about the test she underwent to be admitted to Kimberly. Sheila answered on Nanao's behalf, explaining that every teacher had the right to recommend one student without an exam, and it seemed her father had done that for Nanao. Guy then encouraged them to enjoy the food, and Katie enthusiastically said she was starving. Meanwhile, Nanao grabbed a plate of roast meat, claiming it for herself entirely. Oliver convinced her that they would share it, presenting her the plate as if she were a princess. In the evening, Oliver woke up in his room at 5 in the morning and tried to greet Pete, who was sharing a room with him, but Pete remained asleep. So Oliver went out to the academy garden when a voice asked him why he was up so early. Oliver asked the voice who it was, and she replied that she was a secret agent sent by his brother, Gwyn. He asked her, surprised, why she was there. The agent explained that Gwyn was worried about his safety and had tasked her with watching over him until he got used to the place. She introduced herself as Karsti. Oliver welcomed her and continued his stroll, but was surprised to see Nanao bathing in public. He conjured a magical barrier around the bathing area and scolded her for doing so within sight of the boys' quarters. Nanao told him she was just cleansing herself from the last war. Oliver noticed scars on her body and inquired about them, to which Nanao apologized for him having to see such a sight. The girls gathered in a spot to wait for the boys. When Pete and Oliver arrived, Sheila asked them if they had slept well. The boys replied affirmatively, and soon Guy appeared, apologizing for almost oversleeping, claiming no one told him that hours had spirits. Katie chimed in that she had not seen any clock spirits in her room, while Nanao noted she always woke up at 6. Guy then noticed that Nanao was wearing the academy uniform, and she explained that it had arrived in her room the night before. She asked if she looked like a witch now, but in that moment, Guy noticed Oliver's cloak was wet. When he asked about it, Oliver said it was just his imagination. Pete interjected, urging everyone to hurry for breakfast, as the first day at the academy would be packed with lessons. They moved to the first class about swords, and Teacher Garland informed them they needed to remember what swordsmanship was first. Pete raised his hand to define it, but the other students began to whisper about him, saying he was trying to draw attention to himself despite being an ordinary student. Meanwhile, Pete raised his sword high, saying swordsmanship referred to techniques employed using blades. He explained that blades had been complementary tools to magic wands for over 400 years, dating back to when a famous wizard named Wilf Padroil lost a duel to someone who did not use magic. Pete looked at the blade, mentioning that sorcerers carry blades as essential tools to handle close-range attacks. They couldn't fight with just the blade. They could also use magic without incantation to surprise or confuse the enemy. Garland continued, saying that in this life, a wizard would only fight with his magic and blade. He then told the students that the first day at the academy typically started with a duel between two students who knew swordsmanship. Nanau raised her hand to participate, prompting Garland to guess that she was the Nanau everyone was talking about. Richard also volunteered to duel her, saying he had heard she defeated a troll with just a sword, and it would be a perfect opportunity to see how people in Azaya fight. Katie remarked that Richard seemed to have bad intentions, while Oliver thought to himself that Richard wanted to show off he was stronger than Nanau, intending to exploit her inexperience with swordsmanship. Suddenly, Oliver raised his hand, deciding he would duel Nanau. Richard got worked up and told him to back off, but Oliver informed him that he fought the troll alongside Nanau, and they knew each other, so he should step back instead. Richard retorted that he should have informed his teachers and the older students that he fought a troll. Oliver asked him if he would do the same if his classmate was struggling for their life in front of him. Sheila stepped in, telling Richard that she would challenge him to a duel instead. Richard took a step back and Sheila asked if he was scared, which he denied and accepted the challenge. Garland then announced that the first duel would be between Oliver and Nanau, while the second would be between Richard and Sheila. Oliver and Nanau stepped forward, and Garland cast a protection spell on their swords, explaining that the duel would end when one delivered a decisive blow to the head or chest. Both charged toward each other, but Oliver decided to fight with just the sword for a while, wanting to finish it without using magic, knowing Nanau was new to sorcery. However, Nanau rushed at Oliver at full speed, and the swords clashed, creating a massive spark, while the other students watched from afar. As Nanau charged towards Oliver, she suddenly stopped and began to cry, looking at her blade in despair. Before they could re-engage in combat, Garland interrupted, reminding them that he had previously told them not to try to kill one another, assuring that they had likely broken the lethality spell without realizing it. Oliver was stunned, questioning what he had almost done. Garland ordered them to sheath their swords. Then Sheila told Teacher Garland that she believed the new students no longer needed another duel, so she would withdraw. Richard announced he didn't mind withdrawing either. After the lesson ended, Nanau chased after Oliver, assuring him that she had never had such an exciting match before and was happy about it, but regretted they couldn't finish it. Nanau suggested they duel again with real blades without any spells, to which Oliver firmly replied that he would never duel her again because he didn't want them to kill each other. Later, our heroes sat together, and Guy mentioned that the magic theory lecture right after the arts class was a big surprise for him since Teacher Francis said they would need magic wands, not blades. Pete commented that the teacher had an enormous following, while Katie expressed curiosity about what would happen in the afternoon classes, looking forward to the magic class. In the magic class, Teacher Vanessa told them they would deal with magical animals as resources, teaching them the best ways to utilize them. She then showed them silkworms and asked them to create many cocoons, saying each student had to make 10 cocoons, and whoever made 5 would succeed, but those who failed would face consequences. They started working, with Sheila saying the lesson seemed easy for her. She began working but quickly burned one of her cocoons. Guy, confused, asked if that wasn't easy for her. Sheila confirmed she was doing everything right, and since she only needed 5, it was no problem if one failed. Sheila offered to help Oliver, Katie, and Pete because she would assist Nanau, assuring Oliver she knew there was a problem between him and Nanau. Oliver thanked her for that while Guy shouted for her to help him too. She replied she would help him once he understood her advice and stopped failing. At that moment, Vanessa observed the students, noting they were better than last year's group since none had been attacked, but she noticed Katie was still on her 5th cocoon and told her to hurry, stating it was just a silkworm that needed magic to feed it. Meanwhile, Sheila mentioned to Oliver that Nanau had finished even though she was almost about to fail. She asked how Katie was doing, and he replied that her performance was good, up to 9, but she had different goals. She didn't care about the class, wanting to save as many magical creatures as possible. During her last cocoon, Katie got distracted, and it turned black. Oliver ordered her to burn it immediately, but she tried to save the magical creature. Suddenly, the creature jumped out of the cocoon to attack Katie. Oliver and Pete rushed to help Katie and defeat the creature, and for that, Teacher Vanessa informed them they had lost 2 points for helping Katie. Afterward, Katie apologized to Oliver since he had to leave the class with her because she got hurt during that experiment. She shared that her family had a collection of animals, from dogs and cats to magical creatures and half-humans, mentioning she was close to a troll named Batro. Because of that, she couldn't help but react when she saw an animal in pain in front of her, and she couldn't accept the idea that everything could be mere resources for a wizard to use without rights. Oliver commented that she must have lived among angels but came down to earth and experienced the cruelty of this world, so she can't remain an angel now. Katie looked at him in shock. Oliver continued, affirming that if she could maintain her kindness, it would indeed be noble of her, making her more noble than any other angel. Katie blushed at Oliver's words as he told her she had only seen a small part of Kimberly's side, so she shouldn't be disappointed and should think carefully about her decision. decisions. Suddenly, Oliver opened the door to the room, causing their friends to fall to the ground. He told her she wasn't alone as she could see. Afterward, Oliver went out to wander the academy. Kirsty advised him to choose his friends wisely, as someone who couldn't kill a silkworm wouldn't last long in Kimberly. He told her it was up to him to decide. Kirsty then mentioned she was heading to Gwen and would leave him for a bit. He asked her to send his regards to Gwen. The heroes gathered at the table where Guy noticed Katie had recovered, and she confirmed she was fine. However, Katie noticed Nanao seemed lost in thought and guessed she longed to talk to someone. She offered to talk to her any time. At that point, Pete stood up, saying he had forgotten his book in the magic theory class and would go find it. Oliver informed him that what gets lost in Kimberly isn't easily found. Sheila added that there was a chance a mischievous sprite had found the book. Oliver, Sheila, and Pete went looking for the book. Guy remarked that the building of the Kimberly Academy was said to be located on top of a giant cave, which would engulf the building at night. Soon, Pete found his book. Oliver told him they needed to leave the academy now because it wasn't wise to stay there too long after dark. But when they tried to exit the building, they were shocked to find the way blocked. The cave had indeed overtaken the building. Nevertheless, Oliver assured them it wasn't unusual for new students to get lost in Kimberly, and they were soon surprised by a fourth-year student named Ophelia. Oliver recognized her immediately, and surprised her by mentioning he had read her thesis on the study of rapid evolution from the hybridization of Kraken and Silas. Ophelia said it seemed like he knew her research well, and asked him to come closer, but Oliver quickly left the place with his companions, telling her he wouldn't come closer. On their way to escape, they were stopped by Cyrus, a fifth-year student who asked them why they were leaving a woman all alone. Ophelia then followed them from behind, saying they were being naughty and needed a bit of discipline since they left in the middle of her talk. At that moment, Oliver tried to calm the tense Pete, while Ophelia sarcastically asked Cyrus if he was still desecrating every corpse that came into his hands. Cyrus retorted that it was nothing compared to what she did by chasing after men to satisfy her desires. Ophelia opened her eyes wide in astonishment and asked Cyrus if he was mistaken in his claims, and he called her his succubus demon. Ophelia threatened him to be ready for what was coming after calling her that, reminding him that he had previously torn her courage in half. Ophelia then swiftly drew her sword, while Cyrus prepared to counterattack by summoning a skeletal creature to attack her. At that moment, Ophelia transformed into an enormous beast, prompting Oliver to suggest that it was the right time to escape. Before they could flee, Cyrus set up a spiderweb barrier in their path, stating that while their morale was high, it wouldn't help them escape. Then Nanao arrived, saying it was true because anyone who came there ended up dying, which made her nostalgic for the past. Oliver was taken aback at the sight of Nanao, as Cyrus began commanding the creature to attack Ophelia with his magic staff. Nanao then told her companions that this was their perfect chance to escape, and that she would deal with Cyrus and Ophelia, assuring them that once she joined the fight, the sorcerers would have a hard time keeping up with them. On the other side, Cyrus and Ophelia were taunting each other. He asked her what grotesque creature she would birth next, while she asked him from which corpse he had taken that spine. Nanao ran toward the sorcerers, urging her companions to flee. Oliver tried to catch up to her, but suddenly the area ignited with flames, and Alvin, the president of the Kimberly Student Council, appeared, stating he had been clear about how to properly recruit new students. Cyrus replied to Alvin that he still hadn't changed, spreading his flame first and then talking, calling him the Tormentor. Alvin reassured our heroes that he wouldn't let those two harm them, as Carlos, the supervisor of the fifth-year students, pressed his blade against Ophelia's neck, saying she had definitely heard what Alvin had said. Alvin ordered Cyrus and Ophelia to return to the depths of the cave, promising them punishment later. The two went back to their spots while Carlos told our heroes that their first day seemed tough, but they were safe now. Alvin remarked in surprise that he was still shocked they escaped without being kidnapped, as they weren't the only lost ones in Kimberly. After leaving the cave, Katie expressed her concern for Nanao, who apologized for causing them worry the previous day. Pete mentioned he hadn't worried at all. Nanao suggested they move on to class, and she stuck close to Oliver, telling him that Sheila said she should look at the person, not the blade. Oliver informed her that Sheila didn't mean for her to stick her face into his. Katie interjected, telling Nanao she shouldn't cling to Oliver like that. They went to class, where a student named Garland asked if he could use the sword incantations. Garland replied he was expecting this question and explained that there's a specific type of sword technique called the sword chance, used by the sorcerer within a single step and spell to strike down the enemy without fail or resistance. He mentioned there are 6 known sword chants, but new ones are being developed. In the end, Garland stressed that these chants are highly secretive, and he couldn't disclose whether he could use them or not, instructing them to return to their training and not disrupt class. Nanao expressed her eagerness about the technique and asked Oliver what he knew about it, but he admitted he didn't know more than he had heard. At this moment, Richard accused them of slacking off in their training. Oliver replied that they all needed training because they were at the same level. Richard asked if Oliver was accusing him of being lazy like him. Sheila intervened, telling Richard that he was embarrassing himself with his behavior. Richard insisted he was talking to Oliver and challenged him to a duel. Oliver accepted, and Nanao urged him to fight with all his strength and not to lose on purpose against Richard. Sheila privately confessed to Oliver that she grew up with Richard and was always compared to him, which made her feel responsible for his need to show off this much. Suddenly, Pete interrupted, saying Katie had disappeared after hearing about about the out-of-control troll being killed in the parade. Somewhere, Katie was pleading with Darius not to kill the troll. Darius asked her name, and when he learned her surname, he expressed pity because she was born into a family like that. Katie told him she would overlook his insult to her parents and requested a chance to convince the troll not to attack anyone. But Darius stunned her with his magic wand, telling her she needed to learn first. At that moment, Katie's friends rushed in to stop Darius from harming her, followed by Milligan, a fourth-year student, urging him to stop. Then, Teacher Garland arrived, stating that using painful methods to teach students had been banned for 5 years at the academy, and they still needed to conduct a thorough investigation into what had happened during the parade. Therefore, the troll would remain alive for now, and the principal agreed with this. Darius scoffed, asking Garland if he had joined the civil rights defenders. Garland replied he still held on to his principles and that the civil rights defenders were no longer a small, impotent group as before. Darius told him to do as he pleased, but warned him that the troll would crush Katie first. Struggling to rise from the ground, Katie felt pain but managed to push herself up. Milligan came closer, saying she was worried about the troll, as she was a fellow lover of half-humans, and told Katie she could talk to her anytime. Then, Katie continued walking with her friends until they were surprised by a message from Richard confirming a challenge for a duel between Nanau and Oliver together. On the other side, Katie met with Milligan, saying they should try to get along with the troll. Milligan told her that most trolls in Kimberly are used to being around people, but this particular troll had become withdrawn since the incident at the parade. Katie approached the troll, ate some of the food, and assured him she wasn't his enemy, offering him food as well. Meanwhile, Sheila asked Nanau at that moment if she minded dueling Richard. Nanau questioned her but didn't object. Oliver commented that they wouldn't be able to avoid facing Richard, and the best solution was to accept the challenge. Guy asked for the second time where the duel would take place, and Pete told him it would be in the first level of the cave tomorrow. Guy said he hadn't forgotten. He just wanted to double check. They then moved to class, where they heard a group of other students mocking Katie, calling her foolish for caring about the troll that had tried to harm her. Guy attempted to confront them, but Oliver calmed him down, while Pete said he had no intention of fighting. However, as soon as Katie entered the classroom, one of the students ridiculed her, saying that this class was only for humans and offered to show her to her cage. Katie's friends got upset and challenged those students to a fight. Because of this brawl, they ended up being detained as a disciplinary punishment. Sheila then expressed her frustration about their detention, and Guy mentioned he had taken down 5 students and felt no remorse. Nanau added that she had taken down 12. Sheila said she expected that from Nanau and Guy, but she couldn't believe Oliver started it. Oliver said he wouldn't defend himself and told them to insult him as much as they wanted. Katie apologized to him, as well as to Nanau and Guy, for not being able to defend herself. Oliver reassured her it wasn't her fault, while Guy told her it was the right moment to unleash their anger since those students had insulted her in front of them. Katie thanked them but said it made things worse since most of their first-year classmates were now against them. Thus, Richard would take advantage of that opportunity as much as he could. Nanau said they would be helpless alone like this, and Katie remarked that tomorrow's duel would never be fair. She asked Oliver if he really knew that. Then the time for the duel came, and our heroes drew their swords. Oliver advised his friends not to hesitate to attack if they felt danger. They began to walk down a long path inside the cave, guided by Richard's friends to the duel site. Guy wondered where they were heading, and Sheila explained that there were lots of places to hold a duel in the cave. Pete hoped Richard and his friends hadn't set a trap for them. Richard's friends quickly led them to the chosen spot, which was the fluffy arena. There, they were surprised to see many students. Oliver asked what was going on, and then instructed Sheila to protect Katie, Guy, and Pete. Sheila agreed, telling him they were counting on him and Nanau. Then Richard showed up, and many monsters were released into the competition area. Richard immediately slashed at them with his sword. Nanau wondered what was happening, and Oliver explained it was the traditional kobold hunting game played by sorcerers, even though some objected to it so strongly that it had become rare in modern times. Richard approached Oliver and asked what was happening since he knew they were just there to duel. Richard told him that he wouldn't gain any honor from defeating them in a regular duel, so they would take turns hunting the kobold, and whoever killed more than the kobold would be the winner. Oliver thought for a moment that Richard seemed skilled at this game, and since Nanau had never seen a kobold before, it might be best to let Richard win, giving them a chance to mend their relationship with him. Suddenly, one of Richard's friends spotted a kobold escaping and chased it down, killing it to the cheers of the crowd. Nanau shouted in anger, asking what was fun about what they were doing and how they were forcing those who couldn't fight into the arena to compete against each other. The students then turned on Nanau, throwing things at her and telling her to leave if she didn't want to fight. Nanau turned to Oliver, asking him to go since nothing was worth drawing their swords for. Richard asked her if she didn't realize how much effort went into organizing this event, while Richard's friends blocked her path, demanding she return and fight or face them all. Meanwhile, one student attempted to let out the second kobold, but was shocked to find Garuda had emerged from the cage instead. It caused chaos and even killed one student. Richard froze in fear, saying nobody had told him a monster like that would be there. Everyone aimed their swords at Garuda, trying to take it down, but it skillfully dodged their attacks until it sank its claws into another student, wreaking havoc on anyone in its path. Oliver warned Richard that Garuda was a divine beast, and they were no match for its strength. They tried to open the duel arena door, but it wouldn't budge. Garuda became more enraged and wreaked havoc, shocking Richard, who tried to attack Garuda. Oliver calmed him down, warning him he would be the first to be taken down by Garuda. Richard then ran in fear toward the door, with Garuda in pursuit. However, Nanao blocked Garuda's path with her sword, declaring that he was her opponent, and he had to face her. Garuda retreated, and Nanao advanced directly toward it with her sword. Guy suggested they help her, but Sheila told him that going to her would just hinder her. Guy asked if they were just going to watch, and Sheila reminded them she had promised to protect Oliver. Meanwhile, Nanao continued attacking Garuda, until Garuda flew up and then dove down fast, crashing into Nanao and her sword. Oliver charged at Garuda, trying to slice it with his sword, but Garuda clawed him. Nanao got close to Garuda, and parried its claw with her sword, while Oliver ducked out momentarily to tend to his injury. Richard asked Oliver how he was still fighting while he and Nanao were terrified. Oliver replied that he didn't think Nanao was scared at all because she was a real fighter, and he needed to help her or the fighter would die before learning how to act like a regular person. Oliver returned to the battlefield where Nanao was still battling Garuda, telling her he would create an opening for her to take and kill Garuda. They both charged swiftly towards Garuda, and Oliver managed to hit it. Just as Nanao was about to strike, they were startled to see that Garuda had healed. Oliver halted in front of it to distract it, and Richard jumped in to help them fight. Then, Nanao quickly jumped onto Garuda's body and beheaded it in front of everyone's astonishment. Oliver thanked Richard for his help. Nanao understood that the wins had been because of him, thanking him for saving them. He told them he was a descendant of the Andrews family and no one matched his mastery of wind techniques. Oliver reassured him that everything was fine now. Richard confessed that he was ready to risk his life as a sorcerer, but he feared losing the duel and embarrassing the entire Andrews clan. He was astonished at how they managed to fight such a strong foe. Nanao replied that a samurai doesn't choose the enemy he fights. Once the battle begins, he just has to trust that he will triumph. Then Oliver extended his hand to Richard, saying it was enough that he stood firm in battle while most students fled. He assured him he would never forget that bravery. At that moment, Sheila and the rest of the friends came to check on Nanao and Oliver. Sheila noticed that Nanao was injured, and Richard told her that she could use healing magic to tend to Nanao. Sheila thanked him, saying it had been a while since she saw how great he was. The events continued as Oliver went to talk to Karsti, expressing his embarrassment about what happened in the Flavius Amphitheater. Karsti reassured him not to worry, confirming that no one expected the Garuda to enter the duel arena. Oliver replied that it was Kimberly, and no one could dodge the danger she posed. Karsti explained that this was why she wanted to protect him, as her protection was the only way to enable him to act when the moment was right. He agreed with her. Meanwhile, Katie was holding a plate of food, enjoying it and commenting to the troll that it was delicious, even offering him a bite. Milligan commented that Katie seemed incredibly excited to have come to the troll before the main classes started, but she noted that this troll might not. Before Milligan could finish her thought, she was surprised to see Katie had convinced the troll to have his breakfast, leading her to call Katie amazing. Then, Ms. Vanessa's class began, and she mentioned that they should now be able to differentiate between the garum and the warg. She dismissed them for lunch, prompting a complaint from Pete about having to eat after Vanessa's class. Guy responded that even though he sometimes had to slaughter livestock back home, today's class was unbearable. At that moment, our heroes ran into the same students they had previously fought against. Those students ignored them, leading them to discuss among themselves. Guy noted that at least they weren't insulting Katie in front of her anymore. Oliver reflected on yesterday's incident, remarking that the Garuda targeted those who did not acknowledge the rights of half-humans. Sheila guessed that this might be connected to the troll's attack on Katie, or possibly seeking revenge from the half-human rights group. Katie claimed she had no knowledge of it. Oliver assured her they weren't blaming her for anything, but he believed that spark was the fuse that ignited the war. Heat commented he'd feel better if they could find the instigator of the Garuda incident, hoping the teachers would figure it out. However, Oliver shocked him by stating the incident occurred in the cave, which the teachers would consider just a scuffle between students that got out of control. Sheila remarked things would be different if many had died. Guy said he felt he had truly joined a scary academy. Sheila added that perhaps Nanu came out of that incident with something useful, while students surrounded Nanu, asking her how she fought that Garuda. One of them even offered to have lunch with her. Guy looked at Nanu, commenting on her newfound popularity among students. Katie said it was natural after she fought the Garuda, but she wondered why Oliver hadn't gained the same level of popularity. Sheila quipped she could spend an hour discussing Oliver's fighting style against the Garuda. Guy reminded Sheila she already spent last night talking about it. Heat chimed in, saying that compared to Nanu's impressive fighting style, Oliver's battle was dull and hard to comprehend. Guy asked Pete if he was trying to break Oliver's spirit. Pete apologized, and Sheila said no one could appreciate Oliver's fighting style except experts. She then decided to hug Oliver as a sign of respect. Just then, Nanu arrived, and when they told her about Sheila's intention, she also jumped in to hug Oliver, asking him to kiss her since she deserved a reward for defeating the Garuda too. Oliver stepped back while Sheila stated Nanu's request made perfect sense. Katie shyly asked what was happening now, and Nanu urged Oliver to hurry and kiss her. Before Oliver could actually do it, his cousin Shannon interrupted him, asking if he had made any friends. She then hugged him and left after telling him to cherish his friends. When Sheila inquired about her, Oliver explained she was his cousin, and he was staying with her family. family. They then moved to chemistry class, where Mr. Darius informed them that the materials they were using might undergo sudden and drastic changes, urging them to remember that. Our heroes continued their experiments, with Guy noting this was their 5th class with Mr. Darius. Although he guessed he would face hardship from Katie after meeting him, it hadn't happened. Sheila commented that Darius might be dedicating himself to becoming a good teacher. Meanwhile, Guy finished preparing his magical recipe, and Oliver said he would review the steps with him as it contained dangerous materials. Sheila mentioned she would look after Nanu as usual, while Pete asked Oliver not to interfere with his recipe because he had studied hard. Oliver then began helping his classmates until Pete erroneously added a component to the recipe that nearly ignited. Oliver used a spell, the cauldron over, and laid on it, attempting to control it before it exploded. At that moment, Darius noticed what occurred, praised Oliver, and asked for his name and surname, noting that his way of handling the situation showed how much he learned. He promised to remember Oliver's name and face, but before leaving, Darius warned Oliver to choose his friends more carefully. Afterward, Sheila told Oliver that Darius acknowledged his talent, while Pete apologized to Oliver, saying he saved him. Then Richard approached and warned Oliver about Darius, saying he takes gifted students under his wing to ruin their future careers. He also steals research from the best students and publishes it as his own work. Oliver was quiet as Richard urged him not to trust Mr. Darius, assuring him he would call him soon to join him. Oliver thanked Richard for the advice. Richard then mentioned that one of his acquaintances wanted to meet Katie and the rest because of the troll incident. Soon, Mackley appeared, apologizing to Katie and the others, saying she didn't realize the troll would go out of control like that. Guy asked why she did it, and Mackley explained that her father told her that Wright's opponents embarrassed wizards everywhere, so she used her spell as a prank. Heat told her that backstabbing someone is a kind of cowardice, and Mackley apologized again. Oliver then asked her who was involved with her, and pushed the troll out of control. Mackley replied that she didn't know. She just cast the spell on Katie to embarrass her. Later, our heroes discussed the matter among themselves, and Sheila wondered if they could really trust Mackley's words. If so, who made the troll go crazy? Katie then insisted they stop overthinking it, stating she would go meet the troll. She approached the troll and began asking him what happened during the ceremony, assuring him she knew he wouldn't hurt anyone without reason. Meanwhile, Oliver was teaching Nanu a spell, asking her to first imagine what she wanted to do in her mind. Back to Katie, she wished to talk with the troll more, but she was surprised when he spoke, asking her not to come to him again, as the enemy was an extremely dangerous person. On the other side, Nanu was working on the wind spell, and Oliver advised her that she didn't need to rush mastering it. Nanu insisted she wanted to master it quickly because it was her first spell with everyone and she wished to cast it again with them, even though she thought that troll wouldn't escape again. Oliver asked her what she meant by escape. She mentioned that for a moment, she noticed the troll running toward the academy gate. Oliver thought that there was a big difference between the troll trying to escape and it going out of control. They then rushed to the troll's dorm immediately, where Oliver found Katie's blade lying on the ground. The troll then informed him that the enemy took Katie away. Oliver asked where the enemy had taken Katie. The troll replied he likely took her to a dark and deep place. Oliver realized Katie had been taken to the cave, telling Nanu they had to go after Katie and that there was no time to waste. Nanu then expressed her surprise at the troll's ability to speak and understand human language. Oliver explained that some activists had developed a language for half-humans and had also enhanced their intelligence, believing this would grant half-humans the same rights as humans. However, that project faced criticism, leading to efforts to halt it. Nevertheless, there might still be someone experimenting on the troll. Oliver clarified that now he was sure the troll tried to escape from the parade because someone was manipulating its mind, someone who knew the troll's biology perfectly. They stopped somewhere in the cave, where Oliver stated that it was dangerous to delve further, but if they could contact Alvin. Before Oliver could finish his thought, they were startled by what seemed like an explosion, as Milligan appeared and told Oliver that contacting Alvin would cause her trouble, and she wasn't in the mood for that. Oliver raised his eyes in shock at Milligan's presence, while she welcomed him and Nanu, saying they were now in her personal lab. She expressed her annoyance at them for defeating the Garuda, which she had taken a year to make her subordinate, but whom they killed instead. Oliver glanced a bit further ahead and found Katie lying down, prompting him to ask Milligan what she had done to her. Milligan replied that she hadn't done anything to her yet. She brought Katie because she awakened the troll's ability to speak. Milligan further explained that she had been experimenting on the troll for a long time, but he always refused to talk to her. Then Milligan summoned her magical tools, saying she would perform a check on Katie's brain because she was curious to know how Katie awakened the troll's ability to talk. She then asked Oliver to leave Katie to her since she had plenty of experience and would return her after having a look at her brain. At that moment, Nanu rushed at Milligan with her sword, declaring there was no use in talking, but Milligan cast a petrification spell on Nanu, freezing her in place. Oliver quickly removed that spell, and in that moment, Milligan stated that she had received the basilisk as a gift from her father for protection, explaining that it had killed 5 of her siblings before settling inside her. She introduced herself again, explaining that she was a rights activist specializing in the biology of half-humans, and was nicknamed Milligan, the Eye of the Serpent, because of that basilisk. Milligan's eyes glowed with determination for the attack, prompting Oliver to instruct Nana not to look into Milligan's eyes. eyes. The two charged at Milligan with their swords, but she managed to fend off their attack. Oliver quickly ducked for cover to protect himself from Milligan's counterstrike, while Nana rushed fiercely toward Milligan, undeterred by her defense. Both displayed their sword skills, with Milligan admiring Nana's speed and finesse, wondering if the rumors about her were true, noting that Nana had extraordinary agility. In the meantime, as Nana listened to Milligan, she was caught off guard by a trap that nearly caused her to stumble and fall. Luckily, Oliver intervened just in time, saving her from a nasty fall. Milligan remarked that Oliver only intervenes when Nana lets her guard down. Using a defensive wall to conceal his attack, Oliver dashed toward Milligan, but she quickly repelled him, describing it as a cheap trick. Nana then attacked once again, to which Milligan exclaimed how persistent her opponent was, confessing that she found it challenging to duel Nana directly. As a result, she decided to resort to magic. Milligan cast a spell, unleashing a massive light in the area, followed by a powerful explosion. In response, Oliver cast his own spell, prompting Milligan to question why he didn't just throw a straightforward spell at her. At that moment, Nana charged toward Milligan for the attack, but Milligan suddenly weakened the ground beneath her. Just as Milligan was about to incinerate Nana, she was astonished to find that Nana sensed the origin of the spell and redirected it with her katana. Milligan was stunned and drew her sword, determined to test Nana's strength further. Milligan directed her flame at Nana, but Oliver joined her side, and together they blocked Milligan's fire. Milligan exclaimed in surprise that she thought they were just an afterthought alongside the Katie issue. Oliver then asked Nana if she could execute their plan, while Milligan curiously inquired how they intended to entertain her. At this moment, Nana rushed toward Milligan, while Oliver decided to distract her by casting spell after spell, ensuring she wouldn't see Nana's attack coming. However, Oliver soon realized that Milligan had an unseen eye in her left hand, which slowed Nana's approach toward her. Unfortunately for Milligan, Nana outsmarted her and cleverly overcame the magical eye, causing Milligan's hand to suddenly drop to the ground. At that point, Nana told Oliver that they had won. Oliver asked her what she had just done, but Nana seemed unaware of her actions. Meanwhile, Oliver thought to himself that Nana had just used a sword chant. It did not match any of the 6 known sword chants, as it was a chant unknown to anyone in this world. The two then sat beside Milligan, where Oliver began to heal her. Nana stated that Milligan surely didn't intend to kill them. Oliver assured her that Milligan would be fine now and suggested they return Kati to the academy dormitory. Nana said she would now receive her victory kiss, but they were startled by the sudden appearance of Alvin and Carlos, who asked if they were okay. Carlos mentioned that they had received information from an anonymous source that told them where to find them, while Alvin expressed his astonishment at their ability to take down Milligan. They then returned to the academy dorm, where Kati regained consciousness. Oliver told her everything that had happened with Milligan, and Sheila commented that Katie had succeeded in communicating with the troll, surprising Milligan in the process. Kati then asked about the fate of the troll, to which Oliver guessed that it would consider its eye unique, since it was the only troll that had successfully undergone an intelligence experiment. Kati cheered, saying that it was good, then approached Oliver and Nana and thanked them with a kiss. Kati decided to give Milligan a strong slap and then decide how to proceed with their relationship, assuring them that she would change the academy for the better during her time there until she graduated. Oliver was moved to tears, realizing that he had managed to protect something important. As our heroes walked through the academy hallway, Darius blocked their path and asked Oliver to discuss something. The two then stepped aside, where Darius revealed that they were in the process of retrieving a student's research, a task usually left to others. He explained that the research belonged to an exceptionally talented student who had gotten too close to a spell and died. Oliver understood that magic had consumed this student. Darius confirmed that those consumed by magic always leave behind some form of new discovery. Suddenly, a monster appeared in front of Darius and Oliver, which Darius immediately sliced in half with his sword. Oliver was astonished, telling Darius that those monsters were stronger than Garuda, yet he had defeated them without a chant. Darius then led him to a large magical circle. Oliver asked if he had known what had happened to the troll beforehand, to which Darius questioned how he guessed that. Oliver replied that the logical explanation for wanting to get rid of that troll was to hide the evidence. He then explained that he had evidence that Darius had been supplying Milligan with half-breeds. Darius asked him how he found that out. Oliver inquired about Darius's goal in assisting Milligan with her research, to which Darius replied that he aimed to eliminate foolishness within humanity. He stated that since the dawn of humanity, society consisted of 1% geniuses and 99% fools, and he wanted to change that by altering the source of human intelligence itself. Oliver then asked if he intended to use the same approach on humans as well, to which Darius did not deny it, but added that obtaining samples from half-breeds for his research would now be difficult. Oliver pressed Darius on what he wanted from him, leading Darius to request his assistance in his endeavors. He asked Oliver where he was and what he was doing in the year 1525 of the Greater Calendar on the 8th night of the 4th month. Darius commented that Oliver's question was intriguing and asked how much he knew. Growing agitated, Oliver demanded answers since he was the one asking. Darius Darius replied, surprised that the woman still had living relatives. Oliver thanked him for not having changed in the 7 years since, remaining the same person he had always despised. Oliver then placed his hand on his sword, telling Darius to draw his sword whenever he chose. Darius drew his sword and lunged at Oliver, vowing that he would not kill him a human's death. Both began to showcase their swordsmanship, and Oliver foresaw the future, noting that Darius's combat skills were superior to his. Therefore, Oliver decided to use the fourth sword chant to eliminate Darius. Before long, he managed to overpower him, causing Darius to fall, wondering in disbelief how Oliver had used the fourth sword chant, as he was supposed to have died with that woman 7 years ago. Oliver informed him that he had inherited certain traits from his mother, leaving Darius astounded. Oliver explained that the pain spell could replicate the pain felt by the user directly. He then approached Darius, stating that he had felt all 128 forms of pain he had inflicted on his mother and would continue to torment him with those spells, returning every bit of pain he had caused his mother. Oliver then stood up, telling Darius to search for the magical words that would grant him forgiveness. He cast the first spell, causing Darius to scream, asking how he dared do this to his teacher. Did he intend to oppose the entire academy? Oliver continued to torture Darius, recalling the moment he had cornered his mother and stating to Darius that this was pain number 57, not even half the pain his mother endured. He then asked Darius about the magical words, and Darius begged him to kill him. At that moment, Gwen and Shannon arrived, asking Oliver if it was over. Oliver confirmed, while Gwen asked how much blood he had pressed out now. Oliver told him that he could use it only 2 more times and would die if he used it anymore. Gwen asked him to rely on them, and they would pave the way for him. Kirsty then appeared for the first time before Oliver, stating that serving him was an honor. Oliver realized she was the one who informed Alvin about his incident with Milligan. Gwen quickly introduced Oliver to his mother's followers. Oliver donned the crown, and his mother's followers asked him to lead and guide them until all the traitors who betrayed his mother were dead. Oliver swore that he would kill everyone, stating that there were 6 left, and he would allow none of them to survive. After 4 months, all the teachers gathered together, and at that moment, Vanessa told the principal, Esmeralda, that they had convened to discuss Darius. Esmeralda remarked that it had been 4 months since Darius had disappeared, so they could consider him dead. Francis was astonished, stating that Darius wasn't the kind of fool to hurt himself in the cave. Enrico replied that this meant someone must have killed him. Vanessa said that no one could have done such a thing because if someone could kill Darius, it would have to be one of the 6 of them, or that boy Garland, or even McFarlane could do it as well. Just then, McFarlane appeared suddenly and said mockingly, "What's with the praise?" Vanessa asked him what he would do if Darius came back, while the principal requested that he not interrupt them. McFarlane apologized, saying he likes to make things a little exciting when the situation dulls. The principal, understanding, said that none of them were involved in Darius's disappearance, so they wouldn't discuss the matter further. Vanessa then asked what the principal would do if she discovered that a student was responsible for Darius's disappearance. The principal replied that she would make him suffer desperately. In the boys' dormitory, Pete was having a nightmare and woke up gasping. When Oliver sensed this and asked what was wrong, Pete told him to stay away and threw a book at his face to keep him from coming near his bed. In the academy courtyard, Pete sat alone, and Nana wondered what was wrong with him because he had been acting strangely since breakfast. Katie asked him if Guy had done something to him, to which Guy, bewildered, questioned why he would be responsible for Pete's condition. Katie told him he was the only one acting recklessly among them. Guy insisted that he was always very kind, and when the two started arguing, Pete raised his voice, asking them to be quiet and leave him alone. At that moment, Oliver asked Guy and Katie to give Pete some space, while Miss Cornwallis walked past our heroes. Sheila tried to talk to her, but she ignored her. Nana then asked Sheila about Cornwallis, and Sheila told her that Cornwallis was her relative, and Faye was her companion. Sheila continued sadly that Cornwallis had been ignoring her since she started studying at Kimberly. Guy commented that everyone Sheila knew seemed to have some issue. At that moment, a new teacher named Dustin appeared and told all the students that he would teach them how to ride a broomstick today. Katie exclaimed with excitement that she would finally move to the class she had been looking forward to. It had been impossible to transfer to that class before 6 months had passed. Nana expressed her concern about it, saying she didn't think she could fly on a broomstick. Oliver clarified that she misunderstood. Broomsticks don't fly in the sky. At that moment, their teacher Dustin told them to get ready and warned them that some broomsticks could be moody at times. He then opened a spacious area, and when the students stepped inside, they saw many broomsticks floating in the air. Nanau gasped, "They're not just objects, but living beings." Dustin told her that broomsticks are magical creatures with rigid and branched twigs connected to a handle. He explained that these creatures live off the essential elements, the magical particles in the atmosphere, as well as the magical energy they receive from wizards, in return allowing wizards to fly with them. Dustin picked up one of the broomsticks and told Nanau that it wouldn't let anyone ride it except the wizard it likes. He encouraged her to find her right match among the broomsticks. At that moment, Guy tried to get his own broomstick but failed, while Katie hesitated, saying all the broomsticks looked nice. Oliver, however, quickly found his broomstick. He told Sheila that he had been getting along with his broomstick for a while. Noticing that all the broomsticks were following Nanao, he explained to her that it was normal considering Nanao's magical energy. But Nanao kept walking and did not choose any broomstick. Then she approached a lonely broomstick in the corner, and Dustin warned her that this broomstick was an exception and could hurt her if she wasn't careful. Nevertheless, Nanao approached the broomstick and told it that her previous horse was like that. She understood it only allowed its true master to ride it. The broomstick then stopped moving. Nanao told it that she wouldn't force it but wanted it to know that she was impressed with it and chose it over the others. In that moment, the broomstick jumped up and swooped down before Nanao. She caught it and declared that she chose it as her partner, then flew outside, to everyone's astonishment, especially Dustin, who remarked that he had tried to tame that broomstick many times but had failed. While everyone was watching Nanao fly, Oliver thought to himself that the broomstick belonged to his mother, so it was no surprise it chose Nanao to fly. After that, our heroes sat together, and Nanao expressed her happiness about flying on the broomstick. Katie also said she was happy and couldn't wait for the next classes, while Guy mentioned that neither he nor Pete did well in this class. Heat said he was going to the next class, and Sheila expressed her surprise at the disappearance of teacher Darius, saying that rumors say he got lost in the cave, but she found it hard to believe. Guy remarked that it was also said he disappeared during a fight among the teachers. Just then, McFarlane's voice interjected that it could have been the act of a wizard holding a grudge against Kimberly. At that moment, Sheila was surprised to see her father, who immediately embraced her, saying she had become more beautiful since their last meeting. Sheila pushed him away, telling him she had warned him not to act that way in public. McFarlane then looked at Nanao and asked how she was doing. She told him she was fine thanks to him. Sheila chided him for taking Nanao from Azia and bringing her to his land, then disappearing. McFarlane replied that he had known she would take care of Nanao. Sheila angrily asked what kind of father he was to place that responsibility on his daughter. McFarlane then turned to Nanao and said it seemed she had made many friends here, explaining that he had intended to talk to her more but had come for the class. Sheila thought for a moment as she repeated, "The class," and McFarlane told her he would be their chemistry teacher for a while. In class, McFarlane asked the students if anyone had read his book, My Journey to the East. Cornwallis said she had indeed read it, and Pete raised his hand, saying he had read it and had a question about a difference in a part of the second edition of the book consisting of 25 volumes. McFarlane asked him if he had read all the volumes. Pete confirmed he had read 3 of them, and McFarlane asked him his name. Pete told him his name, and McFarlane stated that he would bring him a gift from his next trip to Azia. Then they moved on to the magical engineering class, taught by Enrico, who told them he would teach them the foundations and skills they would need to create magical tools. He showcased several magical boxes and asked his students to dismantle them within 60 minutes, or they would be in serious trouble if they couldn't finish on time. He suggested they split into several groups and start working. Indeed, they began working, but Sheila had the most luck, managing to dismantle 3 boxes, while Oliver said he had tried his hardest and still couldn't manage to open a single box no matter what. As time was running out, Oliver warned everyone to step away from the boxes and protect themselves. However, while everyone ran, Pete remained withdrawn in his place. Oliver threw his entire body over him to protect him, and at that moment, many snakes burst from the boxes. Guy stood up excitedly, saying that if he had known they were inside the boxes, he wouldn't have been that scared. Then the snakes all jumped onto Guy, who wet himself first before launching electricity from his body, killing them. Enrico told them they were amazing, so he would give them a reward. At that moment, he presented them with something resembling a candy lollipop, saying they could eat it if they got bitten by the snakes. Pete thanked Oliver for saving him, whispering that he wanted to talk to him privately about his transformation. Later, Oliver asked Pete if he was the one who had changed genders. Pete told him he had a weird dream, and when he woke up, he found himself female. Oliver informed him that his condition was extremely rare and called gender reversal, where a person shifts between male and female. Pete was astonished, and Oliver congratulated him, saying that his situation was considered a gift for wizards. Pete was puzzled by Oliver's words, but Oliver instructed him to cast the thunder spell, and then he would see that he was right. Pete cast the thunder spell, and was shocked by the immense power he had. Oliver told him that in his case, he had greater power than anyone. Suddenly, they were interrupted by Carlos, who said he hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but had realized what was happening with Pete since he saw him in the cave. Carlos then handed a message to Pete and told him to come to a meeting at 8 if he wanted to know more about his condition. After some time, Oliver accompanied Pete to the first level of the cave, where they were greeted by Alvin, as the student council president, who said it was his duty to ensure order. He then apologized to them for the incident in the fluffy auditorium involving Milligan. After that, Alvin asked Pete if it was true that he came from a family with no connection to magic. Pete fell silent, and Alvin asked him how he was finding studying at Kimberly, assuring him that the place was scary and hadn't changed from what it was 5 years ago, even though he had tried hard to make it safer. Then, he introduced them to the meeting of people with magic abilities based on gender. At that moment, the other students welcomed Pete, who seemed nervous. Oliver spoke on his behalf, saying that Pete was a first-year student with gender reversal abilities. Once Oliver finished introducing Pete and himself, the students urged him to relax because he seemed to be putting in too much effort to protect his friend. Gwen then played the music, and Carlos asked everyone to enjoy their time. The next morning, our heroes saw a group of broom riders competing against each other. Guy was surprised they were doing this so early, while Nanao remarked that the broom riders looked like they were in a battlefield. Sheila commented that broom riding is one of the most important sports. Suddenly, a first-year student named Rossi appeared before our heroes. He introduced himself and told them he knew all their names. Then he turned to Nanao and said she was incredibly talented. Sheila replied that Nanao's personality was complex and couldn't just be labeled as talented. Rossi acknowledged that he knew this, then looked at Pete and said they would meet later. He turned around, leaving our heroes puzzled by his behavior. They then moved to Mr. Garland's class, where Oliver had just defeated his opponent in a duel. Mr. Garland then announced a duel between Pete and Rossi. The two stepped forward, and Katie noticed that Pete looked nervous. Oliver told her that Pete was trying to hide his feelings. The duel began with Pete charging at Rossi quickly, but Rossi countered with a kick to Pete's stomach, causing him to fall. Mr. Garland ended the duel, telling Pete he was rushing things and needed to be more careful next time. Rossi mocked him, calling him princess, and questioning how he could be strong when he had so many friends to protect him. Afterward, Pete gathered his friends and asked them to participate in special training because he wanted to become stronger. He also noted that the upcoming battles would include magic. Oliver offered to help him, and Sheila said she would train him in the Rezit style to make him a proficient duelist. Oliver disagreed, insisting that Pete should train in the Lanov style. Sheila countered that Pete needed to try out other academy styles. They began to argue about which style was better, with Oliver sticking to Lanov and Sheila defending Rezit. Guy chimed in to Nanao, saying this debate was one of the 3 most controversial topics in the magic world. Nanao said she could teach Pete if they couldn't agree on a style. Guy suggested they could split it up, while Katie proposed that Oliver teach Pete about defense and Sheila teach him about offense. Both Oliver and Sheila agreed. Oliver then told Pete they would teach him how to win in magical battles without relying solely on one style. Oliver started training Pete right away, asking about distances and what he would do considering the space between him and his opponent. He then pulled out his sword and asked Pete to duel him for real. Before Pete charged, Oliver brandished his sword in front of him, explaining that the first way to win was to use magical arts, while the second was to cast spells. However, he made a mistake because he didn't grasp the correct distance. Next, he said the third way to victory was to always be aware of your surroundings. While Oliver was training Pete, Rossi was eavesdropping on them. They soon moved on to lunch, where Rossi interrupted their gathering, telling Pete he could help him become stronger. Sheila told him that interrupting like this was not polite. Rossi replied that they drew all the attention in the academy while ignoring everyone else, and he didn't like being left behind. Then he raised his voice, asking if all the students felt the same way. Oliver questioned what he was trying to do. Rossi said it was time to discover the strongest first-year student. He thought the strongest was Nanao, but insisted others should have a fair chance to show their strengths. He asked who wanted to participate in this challenge, and Cornwallis said she would. Faye asked if she was sure, noting she had trembled in fear during the Garuda attack. Cornwallis explained she was just being cautious then and waiting for an opening to exploit. Faye raised his hand, claiming he would join as well, and then Nanao also volunteered. Rossi then provoked Oliver, asking if he would stay back. Oliver replied he had no reason to refuse. Sheila said she would join too, so Rossi suggested they discuss the rest of the details. He then presented a document where he had recorded the names of all participants, saying the winner would be the one with the most badges. If someone lost a battle, they would award their opponent 1 badge. Once someone lost all their badges, they would be eliminated from the dueling challenge. Rossi continued, saying the 4 who collected the most badges would compete in the finals in a week. Just then, a girl named Evelyn challenged Nanao to a duel. Everyone was astonished, commenting that Evelyn's spell, aiming, and targeting were incredibly chaotic, but she struck fast. Evelyn then told Nanao that she was called Evelyn the Cold-Blooded, or Evelyn the Stormwind, and provoked her, saying she was a worthy opponent for an Asian samurai. The duel began as Evelyn cast her spell, but everyone was shocked when Nanao deflected her spell with her sword, knocking Evelyn's sword away from her. Nanao was declared the winner and returned to her friends, exclaiming her victory. After that, the scene shifted as Pete thanked Oliver for training him, and Oliver responded that Pete was learning quickly and mastering distance judgment. Pete then asked Oliver if he could head back to the dorm because he was tired. At that point, Caristi appeared and informed Oliver that Shannon and Gwen were waiting for him for tea. On his way to meet Gwen and Shannon, Oliver encountered Ophelia, who reminded him she wasn't in the mood for a fight. Since he had a resistance to her fragrance, she just wanted to talk. Oliver sat beside her and asked if she stayed in the cave all the time. Ophelia replied that she had returned to the academy building several times because she wanted to have pumpkin pie from the cafeteria. Oliver told her he preferred cake. Ophelia then asked if he and his friends didn't attract too much attention, and before he could answer, she asked him how he felt during the Garuda fight. He told her he didn't want to feel that way again. She reminded him that Alvin had said the same thing, but she thought he cared about her a lot. Oliver asked her why she thought that, and Ophelia said it was because he resembled Alvin, especially in his habits of getting into adventures that were not suitable for a first-year student. She continued, saying that she and Carlos had always accompanied Alvin in the past, and then warned him about Carlos, saying he would interfere in everything concerning him. After that, she thanked him for their brief conversation, asking him not to get involved in adventures and just stay at the academy to study. Eventually, Oliver met up with Shannon and Gwen, who welcomed him. Gwen asked how his journey through the cave went, to which Oliver replied that he wasn't used to it yet, but he would try to get used to it. He then reminded them that they had met before at Carlos's weird party. Following that, he mentioned running into Ophelia on the way. Shannon asked where he saw her, and Gwen commented that it was probably too late to catch her now. Gwen then added that Shannon and Ophelia knew each other well, and Oliver asked Shannon if she was close to Ophelia. She replied that Ophelia was the type of person who felt lonely. Gwen then asked Oliver if he was sure Nanao had used the seventh sword chime. He replied that he wasn't certain but had a feeling she did. Gwen said Nanao had a magnetic nature that attracted others, reminding him of someone. Oliver mentioned that there was something about Nanao. He kept looking at her and didn't want to leave her alone. Shannon told him he liked her, while Gwen calmed him, saying that feelings of attraction were important for mages. It was possible that Nanao might be the one to change his essence. Gwen advised him to keep his feelings in his heart and remain loyal to his girlfriend as he always had. Oliver agreed with him. As Oliver was heading back to the academy building, he was surprised to find Rossi following him. Oliver asked him to show himself and questioned whether he had done anything to make Rossi hate him. Rossi denied this but clarified that he didn't like being the center of attention. Oliver pointed out that Nanao also attracted everyone's attention. Rossi replied that he didn't count Nanao because she was nice, and he wasn't bothered by her at all. Then Rossi challenged Oliver to a real fight to establish who was stronger, stating they wouldn't use any magic except for counter spells. Oliver agreed, and they began to fight. Rossi charged at Oliver fiercely, who blocked him, but Rossi stepped on Oliver's foot, kicking him and stating he fought dirty. Unlike him, Oliver told him to do whatever he wanted because those cheap tricks wouldn't work on him. Rossi grew angrier, then ambushed Oliver during the fight, hitting him in the face with the hilt of his sword, causing Oliver to bleed. Rossi then informed him he was fighting to kill, so there was no reason not to wear such things. Oliver thanked him for making him realize he truly lacked experience. Rossi warned him to keep talking like that and he would get hurt even more. But Oliver declared no more fighting because he would defeat Rossi in just 8 moves. Rossi became furious and charged at Oliver again, but Oliver quickly grabbed his arm and told him that move had been found years ago and couldn't be overcome no matter how smart he thought he was. Rossi called him arrogant. In that moment, Oliver loosened his grip on Rossi's arm, and as Rossi tried to strike him, Oliver struck Rossi's hand with his sword, causing it to fall. Rossi then awarded Oliver a medal and admitted his defeat, saying he lost to the very one he wanted to overcome so badly. Oliver told him he had a unique fighting style, but he needed to adopt one of the fundamental fighting styles. Rossi inquired what his problem was, and Oliver replied that he envied his talent because he had a special gift he wished Rossi would develop. Unlike him, everything he had wasn't his. It was given to him by someone. Rossi responded that he didn't care, and Oliver continued his way out of the cave. He then ran into Caristi, who praised him, saying she admired him from the bottom of her heart. He told her there was no need for flattery, as he was lacking in experience anyway. After Oliver returned to the dorm, he started treating Bait to help regulate the amount of magical energy in his body. Oliver explained that it was just a temporary treatment since Bait's body wasn't used to handling magic in its female form yet. He then gave Bait some tips to ensure energy flowed properly within him. Oliver gently stroked Bait's hair and assured him that he would be sleeping beside him, so he shouldn't hesitate to call for him if needed. Bait replied that they should hurry to sleep since they would wake up early. The next day, Bait confessed to his friends that he was gender flipped. Sheila congratulated him, saying it was a rare condition. Bait expressed that he didn't know how to handle it. Sheila placed her hand on his body, telling him that he was gaining a new organ he didn't have while in his female form, the womb, or the second heart for witches, where the most magical energy is stored. Bait was astonished as Sheila informed him that the womb would automatically open to provide all the magical energy stored there when he ran low. However, she would train him on how to open and close it. Sheila began to teach him how to manage this new aspect of his identity, and when magical energy surged from Bait, he wondered about it. Sheila explained that this would increase his magical capacity by several percentages and boost his magical strength as well. At that moment, Nanao mentioned that she wanted to try it since she was female too. Oliver yelled at her while Katie offered to go shopping for clothes for Bait to try on. They were interrupted by Rossi, who told them he had lost several battles after fighting Oliver. Oliver asked Rossi if he had fought anyone afterward, to which Rossi replied that some participants were dangerous, so they needed to be cautious. He then asked Bait if he had become a bit stronger before leaving quickly. Afterward, they went to Mr. Garland's class, and Bait faced Cornwallis, who threatened him. Katie noted that Cornwallis looked angry. Oliver told Bate to focus on hitting Cornwallis and not to get distracted. Cornwallis raised her sword, angrily challenging Bate to come forward and strike her. She charged at him with great force, knocking him down with her spell. When Bate got back up, Cornwallis knocked him down again, saying he was making no sense in fighting her. Guy urged Bate to calm down and ordered him not to use magic in this duel. Nevertheless, Bate stood up again and aimed his sword at Cornwallis, trying to hit her with his magic. Cornwallis unleashed a thunder spell, sending Bate crashing to the ground. She approached him, stating that he must now understand the difference between them and warned him not to get cocky just because someone had praised him a little. At that moment, Bate remembered the teacher McFarlane praising him for reading all the volumes of his book. Cornwallis told him he embarrassed her in front of Mr. McFarlane back then. Meanwhile, Katie sadly said she couldn't watch Bate lose like that. Oliver reassured her that Bate hadn't given up, and the fight was still ongoing. Since Cornwallis was undermining Bate, it might motivate him to unleash all his energy. In that moment, Bate charged excitedly at Cornwallis, and just as he was about to strike her with his sword, time suddenly ended. Then, Bate met up with his friends, and Oliver praised his performance. Bate cried out that he hadn't landed a hit on Cornwallis. Sheila told him that he nearly executed the duel technique successfully. Cornwallis overheard and said she was angry at Sheila for leading Bate in such a humiliating manner. Guy told Bate that he was close to succeeding and that there was no need to feel discouraged. Rossi chimed in, saying a loss is still a loss, but he recognized that Bate had tried hard, and perhaps he should start learning the basics too. On the other hand, Katie sat next to the troll cage, wishing they had provided a better place for it. Suddenly, a message fell in front of Katie. She shared its content with her friends, saying it was a special apology from Milligan, who left her a personal research workshop. Oliver reminded her that the cave had many dangers, and reminded her that she was still learning how to protect herself. Katie paused to say that the yearly death rate of half-breeds in the academy was 820, and that the way magical creatures were treated at the academy was dreadful. She aimed to change that, but first, she needed to make a name for herself as a researcher. Oliver asked if that was the reason she wanted to have Milligan's research workshop, to which Katie affirmed and asked for their help in managing it, stating she couldn't succeed alone. Nanau assured her that she would protect the workshop as a warrior. Everyone then joined in to support Katie, and Bate asked if she would make space for her books in the workshop. Oliver interjected that safety came first, so if Katie could keep that condition, they could set off the next day to check the workshop. The following day, they went to inspect the workshop, where Oliver noticed that Nanau had brought her broom, even though there was no room to fly. Nanau replied that she wanted to spend as much time as possible with her broom. Guy instructed Katie to ensure they were heading in the right direction. Katie reassured him that they were together, so nothing bad would happen. Oliver remarked that the cave contained all sorts of scary things, like monster attacks or traps, or encounters with other students. What would annoy them most was facing any troublesome upperclassmen. Suddenly, they came upon a nest of ball mice, and mystical creatures blocked their path. Bate observed that this path was full of magical creatures, while Guy guessed that Katie had intentionally chosen that route. However, Katie abruptly stopped and threw a stone forward, saying the area was packed with thorny projectiles. She clarified that those thorns wouldn't kill them but would cause pain. Bate asked how they would get through then. Katie suggested placing incense in the corridor, saying that the thorns would become dormant once they lit the incense. But as soon as Katie ignited the incense, they were caught by a trap and everyone began to run. Though they managed to dodge the trap, all the thorns ended up in Guy's back. They continued their way into the cave until they arrived at a group of students having a BBQ. The group leader told them that he had thrown the BBQ to welcome the new students and invited them to his party. However, our heroes decided to keep moving, claiming those students were odd. Sheila noted that the person who invited them to the BBQ was famous among his group. Guy remarked that it must be Kevin Walker, known as the Survivor. Katie asked if Kevin was really that impressive, and Sheila said he had disappeared in the cave for 6 months, coming back alive after they had even held a funeral for him. Katie mused that maybe they should have accepted his BBQ invitation. Suddenly, they stopped in front of one girl, who warned them that it was dangerous to wander in the cave at that late hour. Still, she welcomed all sorts of customers and asked if they wanted ingredients for a big feast. She offered them meat enough for 6 people at a great discount since they were her first customers, along with drinks. After they accepted, they resumed their journey until they reached their destination. Katie then blew a hole in the wall with her wand, declaring that they had arrived at their secret base. Once they entered the workshop, Bate asked if they could actually use all of it. Katie confirmed that she had heard it was the best research workshop in the cave. Oliver said he would use the workshop as a research base in the cave while ensuring it was safe for them. Guy suggested setting traps around the workshop for protection, and then they enjoyed the grilled meat, relishing its taste. Sheila then proposed that they come up with a special name for their group so their bond would last. Katie asked Bate for a unique name, but he responded that he couldn't think of anything as her question surprised him. Nanau stood up and asked everyone to raise their swords in the air to form a straight circle. She told them that shape in her homeland was called sword flower, a symbol of bonds between warriors. Then, Nanau requested everyone to remember forever the shape of the flower they made in that spot, assuring them that the flower would never be torn apart. She named the group Sword Flower. Oliver commented that it was a good name. Katie then asked Sheila if that moment was as special as she had hoped, to which Sheila confirmed, bringing joy to everyone. Everyone settled into the workshop, and Nanao said she felt like a child once again. Pete remarked that change isn't bad, and Oliver reminded them that it was thanks to Katie for insisting on the workshop idea. Guy agreed with Oliver while Katie drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, Cornwallis stood outside the cave with Faye, claiming she would prove to Sheila that she wasn't a substitute for her. Early in the morning, Nanao thanked Oliver for waking up early to train her, and Oliver reassured her that it was fine as long as they had the perfect spot for it. He then asked her if she could use the sword chant again, to which Nano replied no. Oliver said they would start practicing spells now, but Nano requested a sword duel first. Oliver refused, stating she needed to learn how to handle spells first, because spell techniques must blend with sword techniques. He told her his job was to help her reach that level. Surprised, Nanao asked what would happen once she reached that level, to which Oliver replied she would become a sorceress at his level. She exclaimed that this was exciting, when suddenly they heard Guy scream at the troll that appeared before him. Katie urged Guy not to scream like that as it would scare the troll. Guy told her his heart nearly stopped when the troll appeared out of nowhere. Katie expressed that she thought it was time to bring the troll to her workshop. Oliver, stunned, asked if the troll came to the cave on its own, but Milligan surprised him by saying she was the one who brought it. Oliver was astonished by her presence, and Milligan explained she just wanted to help a little. Meanwhile, Pete was still lying inside, waking up to look for his glasses, which a moving hand presented to him. Shocked, Pete ran out to join his comrades, leaving everyone astonished. Milligan told them she had turned her left hand, which Nano had cut off, into a living being. Sheila asked Milligan what her real motive was for giving the workshop to Katie. Milligan replied she was investing in Katie's future potential because she wanted to share the credit when she achieved great success. Milligan reminded everyone that Katie wanted to take care of the troll herself, and this place would be perfect for that. Katie confirmed she was indeed thinking of that, while the troll said he loved being next to Katie. Sheila said he seemed amazing and calmer now, so Katie suggested calling him Marco. Oliver asked Marco if he knew them, and Marco confidently replied that Katie talked about them a lot. Marco then called each person by name and told them they were his friends too, since they were friends with Katie. Oliver approached, glad to meet him, and Milligan led them to the nearest entrance of the workshop. Guy looked at the entrance and remarked that it was the fastest way into the cave. Milligan told them that even with that entrance, it wasn't always possible to pass through because the cave had a fickle nature. She warned them that she was leaving now and urged them to stay vigilant if they were going to continue exploring the cave. Excited, Katie said they would continue searching the cave, and as they did, Guy remarked he never imagined he would be walking with a troll. Oliver reassured him that Marco was a good guard. Just then, Sheila stopped them, warning that continuing would lead them to the second level of the cave, which was larger and more complex than the first, known as the Tangled Forest, due to the imbalance of magical beings there. A forest below the cave? Guy said, and while Sheila insisted they should go back, Cornwallis surprised her by asking if she was exploring the depths, confirming she had been waiting for her to take her badge. Marco lunged at Cornwallis to attack, but Katie calmed him down. Cornwallis then said using a pet's aid in that championship was not allowed. Katie replied that Cornwallis appeared out of nowhere, while Faye calmed her down. Cornwallis then suggested Faye should fight as well. Oliver asked Sheila about the relationship between Faye and Cornwallis, and Sheila explained that their relationship was like that of a teacher and knight. Oliver noted that their teamwork would then be strong, but Sheila commented that they could defeat Cornwallis and Faye, considering the 6 months they had spent together. Oliver nominated Nanao to fight alongside Sheila since she was eager for a battle too, but suddenly Albright appeared, saying he would join and be on Cornwallis's team. Nanao asked who Albright was, and Oliver replied that the Albright family was known for superior combat sorcery. Cornwallis asked Albright if he genuinely wanted to join her team, and he said he didn't mind doing so. Albright then directed his question to Sheila, glancing at Oliver, wondering if she minded, including the nobody in her team. Sheila bristled, feeling he was insulting Oliver, but Oliver calmed her, saying there was no issue with joining the three-way battle. However, Cornwallis tried to reject Albright's participation. Faye calmed her down, stating it was in their favor because Albright was targeting Nanao. At that moment, Albright ordered them to follow him to the second level of the cave. Sheila reminded him they had other students with them, which was dangerous. He asked her to send them to housing, but Katie refused to leave and insisted on watching him fight, as did Guy and Pete. Marco declared he would protect everyone. Faye commented that Sheila had many friends. Cornwallis told him to shut up, and then they reached the appropriate place for the fight. Albright asked if anyone objected to adjusting the fatal spell to half its strength. Cornwallis warned him he would regret trying to stab them from behind. Albright told her his only interest was in fighting the samurai and asked her not to expect his help. Then the battle began. Cornwallis was surprised when Oliver targeted Albright, stating he would fight him for not allowing anyone to insult him. Cornwallis then asked Faye to fight the samurai instead. On the other side, Nanao told Sheila she would finally see her blade, and Sheila promised not to let her down. Sheila then shot towards Cornwallis, asking why she hated her. Cornwallis replied that even if she told her the reason, she wouldn't understand. Their swords clashed quickly, impressing Nanao, while Faye commented that both had trained in the Rosette style since they were young. At that moment, Faye said to Nanao that their fight wouldn't be as fun, and then he launched a fireball at Nanao and began to run. She remarked that he was playing a chasing game. Then she chased after him. Meanwhile, the battle escalated between Oliver and Albright, with Oliver launching fire while Albright unleashed waves of water. When Oliver charged at Albright, he activated a wall barrier, but Oliver jumped up and dodged it. Albright told him he was just an ordinary guy doing acrobatics trying to defeat him. Oliver ordered him to save his strength until he knocked him down. Albright jumped up, but when he attempted to land a sword strike on Oliver, Oliver blocked it. Albright remarked that he was using a vast range of spells to distract his opponent, then aimed a direct hit to win his fights. Oliver realized Albright had discovered his tactic and shifted his blade's path in the same way, cutting his cheek and asking how he would respond to that. Albright replied that he was bold. While Oliver's friends watched the scene, Katie remarked that Oliver's recent attack had created a flash in the sky. On the other side, Faye was inwardly cursing Nanao, wondering about her strength. Cornwallis told him he was weak and asked him to win at any cost. Faye recalled a memory from the past and told Cornwallis that she could command him since she owned him, and he would tear her enemy apart forever. At that moment, Cornwallis raised her magic wand, transforming Faye into a huge werewolf and ordered him to charge. Then she climbed onto him and sprinted towards Sheila and Nanao quickly. Nanao met her with her sword, but was astonished that her strike had no effect on the werewolf that Cornwallis was riding. Sheila informed her it was because Faye had turned into a werewolf, not a human, and thus his ability to take hits was completely different from that of humans. Nanao charged at Cornwallis and her werewolf again, but Cornwallis stopped her with her spell. Meanwhile, Albright provoked Oliver, stating he wouldn't mind fleeing to help his friends. Oliver replied that they didn't need his help and that there was no reason for him to flee from him. On the other hand, Sheila warned Cornwallis about Faye remaining in his werewolf form, reminding her that Faye had half-human blood and that half-humans suffered pain when transforming. Then Sheila asked Cornwallis why she was making her partner suffer this way for a competition between first-year students. Cornwallis recalled when she had asked Faye in the past why her father never praised her. At that moment, Cornwallis completely lost it, questioning what Sheila knew about her and Faye to advise her. The werewolf then attempted to attack Sheila, but Nanao sensed this and stopped him, telling Sheila they now had to face each other with equal strength. Sheila responded that she would help Cornwallis then to end Faye's suffering as quickly as possible. On the other side, Albright mocked Oliver, questioning whether his tricks had run out. Oliver retorted that Albright's words didn't affect him. In his mind, Oliver thought that Albright didn't trust himself as much as he pretended. As Albright lunged toward him quickly, Oliver deflected his sword, and their swords clashed together. Albright cast a spell on his sword from a close range, and Oliver scoffed, wondering if this was his way of winning battles. When Albright realized that Oliver had lured him into casting that spell, he called him a scum, to which Oliver replied that they were now at the distance that sorcerers dread. He challenged Albright to show him his fighting skills. Albright asked if he thought that was enough to defeat him. Meanwhile, Cornwallis ordered her werewolf to finish things, stating that the samurai posed no threat beyond her sword, and instructed him to focus solely on Sheila. Cornwallis charged at Sheila, declaring it was the end. Sheila cast a thunder spell, and although Cornwallis thought Faye's body was strong enough to withstand it, the moment she and her werewolf entered the spell's range, she fell off. When the werewolf tried to rise, Nanao prevented him with her sword. Sheila announced that she had altered the spell, centering it on teleportation, and then sought to deliver a surface electricity shock to Cornwallis. Cornwallis got back up and asked Sheila to face her with her sword. Meanwhile, Oliver and Albright continued their duel, each trying to disrupt the other's balance until they both tumbled into the water. Albright exclaimed that this wasn't a fair fight, but Oliver reminded him that while he may lack Albright's combat skills, he had great endurance. He vowed to make Albright hang in that place with him. As Sheila fought Cornwallis, she mockingly said her blade had lost its sharpness since she was alone. Cornwallis retorted that she still lacked mental training. Meanwhile, Albright tried to ambush Oliver, trying to push him away, but Oliver surprised him with a swift kick and cast his spell, knocking Albright to the ground. Oliver pointed his sword at Albright, declaring victory since he had brought him down first. At the same time, the competition between Sheila and Cornwallis was intense. Suddenly, Sheila knocked Cornwallis's sword away, causing Cornwallis to stagger back, wincing in pain. She questioned tearfully why she couldn't win. Faye returned to her human form and told her it was because they had been the weaker side. Sheila then asked if they always hated her. Faye revealed that Sheila had always been too perfect, and if she were to die, Cornwallis would take her place since she also bore McFarlane blood. Nanao gasped, questioning if that meant Cornwallis was Sheila's sister. Sheila explained that they were half-sisters by blood, yet their father couldn't accept Cornwallis because of an old family tradition that required the main family witches to share their blood with the branch families. Her father upheld that tradition. Faye looked at Cornwallis with pity, stating that the harder she tried between her siblings, the more her father distanced himself from her, realizing that her blood was less significant than that of the main McFarlane line. Faye mentioned that Cornwallis had known why her father kept away from her since she was 10. Thus, she resolved to prove she was more talented than Sheila and make McFarlane accept her as his daughter. Faye concluded that this was an impossible dream, yet Cornwallis continued to live solely on the hope of realizing it. Then, Nanau approached Cornwallis, telling her that she saw no resemblance between her and Sheila. She asked if, should Sheila lose her life tomorrow, she expected to be treated as her replacement. Cornwallis replied that was impossible, that they were merely tools in life, born as they were and not as others. Nanau took Cornwallis's hand, expressing her desire to know her as Cornwallis, not as someone else. She continued, wanting to recognize the person who had fought Sheila face to face with pride. Finally, Cornwallis smiled, while Oliver remarked from afar that this always happened whenever Nanau started to speak. He advised Albright to duel Nanau one day. Afterward, Albright gathered everyone and recounted how one of their servants had a girl named Emma who was his age. One day, he played chess with her. Even though she was weak and he always defeated her, she kept challenging him. Emma read a lot of books until the day she finally beat him. She felt excitement and joy. Though Albright lost to Emma, he was happy because he saw someone's efforts yielding results for the first time. He later told his father that Emma had beaten him and that her challenge was the most fun thing for him. Then his father stood up and shocked him, continuing to hit him for half a day. At that moment, Albright was forced to understand what it meant to belong to the Albright family. He turned to Oliver, stating that he would always despise others throughout his life. He then raised his magical staff high, unleashing an immense energy wave that summoned a massive swarm of stinger bees. Oliver gasped, asking what Albright was trying to do. Albright replied that he had previously told him he was from the Albright family, so defeat was not an option for him. He then told the whole group to surrender, warning them that he would erase their memories of this battle and allow them to leave, specifying that any resistance would lead to a different outcome. Cornwallis aimed her wand at the bees and took one down, which enraged the rest of the swarm. At that moment, Faye threw himself onto Cornwallis to protect her, while Oliver and Sheila tried to fend off the bees. Guy grew some plants to create a protective barrier, and Kati signaled for her companions to follow her. They immediately complied, while Faye remained among the bees to protect Cornwallis. He urged them to follow. They did, and as the bees surrounded the barrier Guy made, Kati ignited some insect-repelling incense, explaining that it wouldn't last long. Sheila then asked Oliver for a plan, to which he admitted their only option was to surrender. Nanau agreed, but insisted she had to first show Albright the meaning of true defeat, while Kati protested against surrendering to Albright, declaring her readiness to fight tyrants. Guy noted that if Oliver was surrendering for them, it was better he didn't. Oliver suggested the alternative was to gamble, who knew what the consequences would be. At that point, Bate told him to stop acting like their father, as they hadn't come to hinder him. Oliver apologized and explained his plan. When Albright ordered the bees to attack their heroes, he was astonished to see the bees drawn to the barrier due to the enticing incense. Albright exclaimed that it was impossible. Meanwhile, Sheila attracted the bees and surprised everyone by revealing that she was half human and half elf. The bees quickly went out of control and began to swarm wildly. All of our heroes raised their swords together, casting a combined spell that eliminated some of the bees. Albright sent another hive of bees toward the hero's nest, but Nanau charged at that hive with her sword, slicing through every bee in her path. As Albright landed on the ground, Nanau cut him off, demanding that he raise his sword and face her. She emphasized that they were the ones to decide victory and defeat because there was no ruler between them. Albright laughed, claiming that was exactly what he wanted, and he charged toward her with force. Nanau darted toward him like lightning, swiftly knocking his sword away. Albright fell to the ground in shock. On the other side, Cornwallis told Sheila she had already known she was half-elf, but hadn't realized she possessed all that power. She questioned why Sheila hadn't used it during their duel. Sheila replied that she had never intended to use her power in a first-year student match. She then confided in Cornwallis that she wanted to fight her for as long as possible, as they hadn't interacted since they were 12 years old. Sheila then produced a flower crown, expressing that she always looked forward to meeting Cornwallis each year because she excelled at making things with flowers. Cornwallis asked if she still kept it, to which Sheila replied that she treasured it, assuring her that she was still part of her family even if she was apart from them. Cornwallis then promised to make her another flower crown. Meanwhile, Oliver extended his hand to Albright, challenging him to a rematch when they were stronger. Albright told him he would grow stronger after tasting defeat. Oliver commanded everyone to return to their dorm, declaring that they had explored the cave enough for the day. The events unfolded as Alvin walked with the members of the Kimberly Council through the cave pathways. Lycides said that if one of their younger students got kidnapped, their mission was to bring him back, while Carlos argued that they needed to stop Ophelia since the magic was starting to consume her. Alvin replied that they were already late to make such a decision, and that Ophelia might have anticipated their actions. He hinted that Ophelia acted quickly because she expected their plans. At that moment, Carlos whispered to Alvin, asking him to handle things if he failed to solve the problem. On the other side, Katie mentioned that Beat had had not returned yet, to which Sheila informed her that the senior students were doing everything they could to bring him back. All they could do now was wait quietly. Guy got frustrated, saying that it had already been several days, and questioned whether they were searching for Beat properly. Sheila replied that getting swept up in emotions wouldn't solve anything, while Oliver calmed him down, saying they really couldn't do anything this time. Guy noted that if he were in Beat's place, he could at least cook for him. Nanao interrupted him, emphasizing that someone who has lost their life cannot eat, and that the only way to offer food to him was to leave it as a sacrifice by his grave. Guy asked if she meant to say that Beat was dead. Nanao replied that she didn't know, but in her homeland, 8 out of 10 people lost in battle die. Oliver told her she was being pessimistic, and reminded her that the Chimera was designed to take people alive. Katie wondered what Ophelia would do to Beat. Suddenly, Sheila stood up and told them it was time for class, insisting their argument was pointless. Afterward, Oliver met Gwen and asked if he could help him rescue Beat. Gwen replied that he and Shannon were already planning to accompany the student council to the cave. However, Ophelia's lair was on the 2nd level, making it hard to find, and they couldn't afford to lose any more of their friends right now. At that moment, Shannon took Oliver's hand reassuringly, saying she would definitely find Beat. Oliver continued on his way when Rush suddenly interrupted him, noting that he seemed sad, and informed him that their little heroics had been cancelled, so the atmosphere wasn't right for fun. Rush provoked Oliver further, saying he shouldn't do anything strange for his own benefit, or else he'd be greatly disappointed if he died quickly. Oliver ignored Rush's comments and kept walking. Meanwhile, Garland told Katie that Beat's situation hadn't reached a level that warranted intervention. Katie questioned what situation Beat would need to be in for them to act. Garland explained that the teachers begin searching for students after 8 days, at which point the chances of the student being alive drop significantly. Katie repeated 8 days, to which Garland affirmed that she should let go of the idea that the teachers would save her from everything. In another place, Oliver told Sheila that she had spoken to McFarlane then. Sheila responded that she had turned to McFarlane as his daughter would. McFarlane told her that if she weren't able to protect her friends, the moment she gained them, she would lose them too. Sheila insisted that she was going into the cave at night. Oliver warned her that it was suicide, but she replied that at the time of Beat's kidnapping, she compared the risk of all of them dying if they returned to save him to the possibility of staying alive if they pulled back and left him. They hadn't known anything back then about those monsters, and they could have easily died. Oliver tried to dissuade Sheila from her decision, but she asked him to let her take responsibility, otherwise she wouldn't be able to face Beat again. He offered to accompany her, but she refused, saying if they both disappeared, the other 3 would head to the cave. Oliver resolutely told her he wouldn't allow her to go alone. Just then, Milligan surprised them with her presence, saying she had something to discuss with them and Katie. Oliver quickly chastised Katie, asking if she was planning to sell herself. Katie replied that this was what was needed to save Beat. Milligan asked her if she meant she would let them do whatever they wanted with her body in exchange for saving her friend. Oliver stated he was canceling that offer since Katie made it without consulting her friends at all. Milligan then questioned him about his plan. Oliver asked her what the chances of saving Ophelia were since she was in the same class. Milligan informed them that regardless of anything, the chance of saving Beat was only 20% because Ophelia didn't have much time left, and the magic would consume her. In turn, she would eliminate the lives of the students she had kidnapped without any hesitation, as long as it helped her in her search. Then, Milligan thought for a moment and said they could raise the percentage to 21% if she trained them all to fight Ophelia. Milligan continued, explaining that her research had reached a dead end because of them, and she had been heavily relying on Darius, who was now missing, putting her in a critical position. That was why she sought Katie's help. Katie responded in surprise at the request for help. Milligan then expressed that she wanted to include her in the research since she had awakened Troll's ability to speak. Milligan candidly informed the team that even then, their chances of defeating Ophelia were slim, as she was much stronger than Milligan. However, they might still be able to save their friend. She promised them that she would find out Ophelia's hideout and take them there, but added that Katie needed to officially become her partner in the search. Katie immediately agreed, telling Oliver and Sheila that she would do everything she could to save Beat. After that, Katie and Sheila went to Nanao's room, where Nanao said she had been waiting for them and was ready for that. Sheila told her that they needed to prepare for the worst. Nanao replied that whether she was saving her friend or retrieving his body, it was all the same. Katie apologized, stating that Milligan said she wasn't ready to go yet, prompting Nanao to ask her to take lecture notes for her, saying she was the only one she could entrust with that. Meanwhile, Oliver was saying goodbye to Guy, who told him he understood why they left him in the dorm, and that he didn't want to hinder them. He then gave Oliver seeds of the tool plants he had grown, using them to make barriers. Oliver assured him that he would use them if he needed them, while Guy offered him some cake, asking him to save some for Beat and not to be reckless out there. After that, Milligan took them to the place they would enter to the depths of the cave and threw her hand at Katie, saying she would leave her in her care. If she didn't return alive, her hand would be the key to accessing her research notes. She asked Katie to take care of it. Guy then urged his friends to return safely. Meanwhile, Beat awoke in a strange place, wondering where he was. Ophelia approached him, asking him and his classmates to be good boys and go to sleep. On the other other hand, Milligan informed the team that Ophelia's clan inherited the blood of succubus demons, mixing the natures of different creature types within the womb to produce children. They sought to create an ideal form of life, but ultimately failed, and their race became practically extinct. However, Ophelia's family found another way to utilize their wombs, transforming them into tanks that could create artificial monsters to perform a variety of tasks. Milligan then asked the heroes if they had seen the chimera Ophelia had created. She continued by explaining that Ophelia needed a significant amount of magical energy to create such a chimera, which is why she had kidnapped those students. Oliver guessed that Ophelia was trying to create a second chimera. Milligan replied that it could be even more terrifying. Sheila asked if draining energy from the sorcerer was painful. Milligan speculated that Ophelia had put the students to sleep, but they would still weaken over time, as she was siphoning their vitality. Sheila wondered what vitality meant, and Milligan clarified she meant life energy. Nanau confessed to Milligan that Beat was a reverse gender. Milligan expressed concern for Beat, saying he might be a hindrance to Ophelia producing more chimera. When our heroes arrived at Milligan's workshop, they found Marco there, who asked about Katie. Oliver reassured him that she was safe. When Milligan learned that the chimera hadn't attacked Marco, she said that Ophelia hadn't completely lost her sanity yet. Milligan then provided our heroes with magic potions to protect them from Ophelia's scent. Meanwhile, Alvin and Marcus had split from Lycede and Tim to search for Ophelia's lair. Suddenly, Alvin and Carlos encountered Kevin, who informed them that he expected they would take this path. He then handed Alvin a map of the second level of the cave. Alvin curiously asked him if he had been on the second level when all this happened. Kevin apologized but said that he still hadn't been able to find Ophelia's workshop. At that moment, Carlos hugged Kevin in gratitude before leaving. On the other side, one of the monsters appeared before our heroes, and Milligan informed them that retreating was the best solution since they shouldn't face this monster until at least the third year. Then Milligan asked them to watch what she would do and learn from her. She leaped in front of the monster, explaining that they needed to understand its traits first. For example, she declared that this creature was blind. Milligan taught them that when fighting a giant magical beast, they must keep moving without stopping for even a second. She charged at the monster with her sword, advising them not to rush the fight or drag it out, ensuring their strike would be decisive. It wasn't long before Sheila was amazed, exclaiming that Milligan made it look easy as she defeated the chimera. Milligan reminded her that finding the monster's weak points and sticking to a plan was anything but simple. Nanau then announced that she could take on the monster now, but Sheila ordered her to stop putting herself in danger alone. Oliver assured her that they would support each other. Milligan said they were entering the tangled forest now, and they needed to keep pace with her. On the other side, Carlos recounted his first meeting with Ophelia, during which she asked him if he was the man who would bear her next child and told him that every man who spoke with her lost his sanity. Carlos then told Elvin that his meeting with Ophelia was due to the unification of their families. As our heroes continued their journey through the forest, Milligan shared that this lair was her favorite for a stroll because its ecosystem was diverse and never boring. Sheila expressed surprise, exclaiming, "The favorite place for a stroll?" Milligan replied that, unfortunately, she couldn't take a walk this time, as Chimera Ophelia could attack them at any moment, urging them to hurry. They pressed on, navigating the area using the plants given to them by Guy, and stopped to rest after walking for 5 hours. Sheila offered Milligan some cake, which Milligan thoroughly enjoyed, exclaiming it was unfair they got to taste it without informing her first that it was delicious. Sheila mentioned that the tool plants were also a gift from Guy, to which Milligan responded that their rapid growth and sturdiness were impressive. Oliver suggested they could use them to distract magical monsters during combat, and Milligan said she wouldn't mind supporting his creativity. After thanking her, Oliver went to fetch water from the lake, where he encountered Kirsty, and asked her about Gwen and Shannon. Kirsty informed him that they were making their way through the second layer and would reach the third layer soon. Oliver asked what they had instructed her to do, to which Kirsty replied that they commanded her to bring him back to the academy immediately if she met him in the cavern, clarifying that it had nothing to do with his enrollment at the academy. Oliver questioned why she was disobeying orders, but Kirsty explained that he had officially become her master since he had already been crowned, indicating that his commands took precedence over Shannon and Gwen's. She told him that his next target after Darius was very close, so he could use her to resolve matters quickly. At least she could serve him by scouting. Oliver assured her he would rely on her to inform him of any danger lurking on their path, and Kirsty reassured him she'd take care of it, but Oliver reminded her not to act recklessly. Kirsty promised she would do her best to serve him, after which Oliver returned to his companions. Milligan informed them that the biggest obstacle in the second layer of the cavern was the massive tree Ermensel. Nanau remarked that the path was very steep, and asked if they couldn't fly up with their brooms. Milligan responded that it was possible, but warned her that attempting to fly without knowing the area's layout and environment would lead to regret. Sheila noted they couldn't take risks here, prompting Oliver to wonder why there was no sunlight in this underground cavern. Milligan told him that the reason was still unknown, but it stemmed from magical techniques dating back to prehistoric times, which were hard to replicate in their current age. Sheila remarked that the sun of this place was unlike the surface sun because it didn't set. Milligan explained that this place was like paradise for plants that never sleep, which is why it was called the Tangled tangled forest. They continued on, and Milligan sensed something odd since this area was usually filled with magical monsters. The heroes halted somewhere, and Milligan informed them that this was the den of a magical creature, advising them to look at it directly and not show any fear. The creature appeared, and Milligan asked what was going on, as it seemed indifferent to the few people crossing its territory. Then Milligan noticed the creature was injured and asked if it had fought Chimera Ophelia. When she attempted to examine its wound, the creature roared at her, causing Milligan to back off and try to intimidate it with her gaze, but it became more agitated. Milligan asked her companions to draw their weapons, but Nanao stopped her, stating they hadn't shown enough respect to this creature. She then placed her weapon in front of it, stepping closer and bowing as she acknowledged they had trespassed on its territory, but they were passing through to rescue their friend and had no time to waste. The creature observed her thoughtfully while Nanao continued to assure it they didn't want to force their way through violently and asked if it would allow them to pass. The creature retreated to its den, at which point Milligan asked Nanao how she managed that, surprised by her actions. Nanao explained that she had heard magical creatures could sense danger through a person's scent, so to convey to these creatures they weren't foes, they needed to face them with a calm heart. She added with a smile that Katie had told her this. Sheila remarked how incredible it was that she applied this advice to a magical creature that was staring right at her. Oliver noted that the magical beast was injured and highly agitated, so it too wanted to avoid combat as much as possible. Milligan observed that Kati and Nanao were full of surprises alongside their excellent chef Guy. She pointed to a spot ahead, telling them they would be down once they passed through there. Meanwhile, Cornwallis and Lynette were also making their way through the tangled forest, where Lynette tried to warn Cornwallis of the danger, stating that if they were found, they would die. Cornwallis told her they must locate the Chimera first and kill it. Otherwise, why did she think she had brought it with her? Reminding her that she was a student in the 4th Division, Lynette replied that it would be possible if there was just one Chimera. However, Chimera Ophelia were all over the place, and she asked if Cornwallis planned to fight them all, astonished at why she was so eager to meet a kidnapped pup, pointing out that if Cornwallis indicated any man, he would throw himself at her feet. Cornwallis insisted that Faye was not like that at all. Lynette curiously questioned why their relationship always seemed to reach that point despite being sisters. She acknowledged they weren't blood sisters, but still felt like sisters. On the other hand, Chimera Ophelia appeared at the magical creature's den. The creature emerged to defend the heroes, but the Chimera swiftly beheaded it. Milligan raised her blade, telling her companions it was time to apply what she had taught them, and she would support them. She commanded them to defeat the Chimera. Oliver quickly dashed alongside the Chimera, throwing the tool plants that rapidly grew to form a protective barrier for the heroes, while Nanao sprinted towards the Chimera. However, the Chimera initiated its attack, and Nanao took shelter inside the plant barrier for a moment, as Oliver and Sheila continued to assault the Chimera, which unleashed fireballs toward them relentlessly. Sheila noted that the Chimera's body was extremely tough, and Oliver told her they would target the Chimera's exterior and aim for its nerve points. At that moment, Nanao charged at the Chimera like a cannon, but when she severed the Chimera's leg, it regenerated immediately. They altered their plan, especially after they noticed that temperature changes weakened the Chimera's exterior. Oliver and Sheila began working on that strategy, to the extent that Milligan was impressed by how well they adapted. However, she expressed concern that they might fall into the trap of thinking they had a chance to overpower a new enemy. Soon, the heroes split up to take down the Chimera, with Nanao confronting it from the front while Oliver and Sheila attacked from the sides. Sheila cast a fire spell while Oliver spread the plants around the Chimera to hinder its movements. When Oliver moved in to finish off the Chimera, it suddenly showered him with thorns. Nanao screamed, and Milligan rushed forward with her blade, stating she had anticipated this and hoped Oliver would hold on and not die. But when she reached Oliver, she discovered he had already defeated the Chimera, claiming he had foreseen the attack. Joy surged through Sheila and Nanao as they celebrated their victory over the Chimera together, while Milligan realized they never needed her help at all. They continued moving, battling countless magical creatures along the way, until they stopped to rest in a cave. There, Milligan noticed Oliver hadn't gotten enough sleep, and he confessed he was worried about Pete's life. Milligan asked him why they were doing all this for Pete when they had only known him for a short while. Oliver replied that the 6 of them had first come together during the Academy's entrance ceremony, when Marco was about to crush Kati. And even though Pete was the only one among them who didn't come from a magical family, he hadn't run away during the incident. Instead, he joined them to save Kati, which made him feel happy. He added that he was sure the other 4 were also happy because of this friend they met for the first time on Kimberry ground. Milligan expressed her understanding that this showed the beauty of their friendship, adding that she personally admired him. She recognized that Sheila came from a magical family while Nanao had a unique upbringing, but what impressed her about him was that, despite lacking any talent and being mediocre in everything, he still fought alongside the 2 gifted ones. Oliver told her she was exaggerating, but Milligan guessed there was a gap in Oliver's past that led him to this stage. She then continued, expressing her concern for him as a senior classmate. Suddenly, Milligan stood up, stating they were approaching the 3rd layer, and the environment would be harsher, so he needed to prepare well. Meanwhile, Albright woke up and asked Pete where they were. Pete informed him they were in Ophelia's workshop, to which Albright grumbled that he had lost his sword and staff, questioning how Pete was able to move despite inhaling the perfume. Pete confessed to him that he was gender-inverted and asked him to help him escape. Albright ordered him to be silent, explaining that if Ophelia discovered his truth, she would kill him. He then pulled out 3 spheres for Pete and instructed him to use them to escape, saying the 3rd sphere was for emergency calls and telling him to leave at the right time. In the library, Guy said there was still no news. Katie responded, assuring him that Oliver, Sheila, and Nana would definitely save Pete. She emphasized to Guy that all they could do right now was take class notes until their friends returned. Guy reminded her that 3 days had already passed, so he hoped Oliver was okay. Katie told him not to be so pessimistic, insisting that no one could defeat Oliver. Guy informed her that they were going to face Ophelia, and that Oliver was the only boy there. He reminded her that Ophelia's perfume had a strong effect on the boys, which made Katie blush and impulsively declare that nothing would ever happen to Oliver. Meanwhile, Nana walked with Oliver, praising their teamwork. Oliver asked her to stop sticking to him. Nana teased that Oliver must hate her now, but Sheila, understanding the situation, said that Ophelia's perfume had been bothering Oliver since they entered the 3rd class. Oliver admitted, shyly, that he felt embarrassed to say so, but she was right. He lowered his head, stating that he wouldn't lose control of himself. He just didn't want to lose his focus. Nana cut in, asking him how the perfume affected him. Milligan chimed in, mentioning it made him sexually aroused, explaining that such was the effect on men inhaling Ophelia's scent. Nana innocently asked what that meant, and Oliver shyly told her she didn't need to know, confirming that her closeness always annoyed him. Milligan remarked that the innocence of Oliver and Nana was so bright it was hard for her to look at them. Sheila advised Milligan not to think about interfering. Milligan responded it was impossible, then paused abruptly before addressing Oliver, stating she knew how much he could handle, but he needed to take his magical doses now. Oliver agreed, and they stopped in front of a large water swamp where they set up a big boat using Guy's plant tools. Oliver made a risky comment about how difficult it would be for her to go with them by boat, asking her to return to the surface so he could continue alone. But before everyone boarded the boat, Milligan told them there was an important lesson to learn. They needed to learn to walk on the lake in a Lanov style. She stood on the water, stating that walking on water required mastery of all elements of spatial magic. Milligan confirmed that she knew Sheila and Oliver were aware of this. Oliver replied he knew, but wasn't sure he could apply it, since he had heard that first-year students were too early for this. Milligan just asked them to try it out. Nana quickly dashed into the water, sank, then resurfaced, saying she didn't understand the trick at all. Oliver stepped forward, telling himself he would cover the water's surface with his magic energy, as he did when using the grave step, and distribute his weight on his legs. When Oliver succeeded, Milligan praised him, saying she was sure he would make it. He remembered how his mother used to do that and told him he would do it one day because he was her son. Then, Oliver made his way across the water, leaving Nana amazed. Milligan revealed that this technique was key to unlocking greater power. Oliver reached out to Nana, pulling her along with him. She placed her feet on the water, succeeding in walking along with Oliver's help. Milligan then asked Sheila if she was going to stay on land, but Sheila joined them, saying she also succeeded in walking on the water. Milligan said she was sure they would return safely. On the other side, Lynette lit some incense and told Cornwallis that they could now fly over the swamp without worrying about skyfish. Cornwallis asked if the incense would last until they crossed to the other side. Lynette shook her head, saying they would stop at a small island to light more incense. Lynette confirmed that it was risky, but she did this only for Cornwallis. However, they might not be able to land because of magical beasts, so she said she would then have to walk on the lake and assured Cornwallis that she would carry her like a princess. Both hopped on their broom, and Lynette requested Cornwallis not to fly higher than her. Meanwhile, our heroes continued crossing the swamp in their boat. Oliver noticed that Milligan was using a spell to keep the winds gathered around the sail. Then, she warned him that there were few magical beasts, which seemed strange. Suddenly, the beasts started attacking, and Milligan swiftly drew her blade. At that moment, Cyrus appeared, and Milligan told him that his welcome was thrilling. He inquired about what she was doing there and reprimanded her for bringing 3 students to a deadly place. Milligan replied that Ophelia had kidnapped their friend and they came to rescue him. Cyrus asked if she planned to fight Ophelia, assuring her they would perish anyway, and if that was the case, they might as well perish in his spot and benefit him. Sheila stood up, asking if there was any way they could collaborate with him, to which Cyrus retorted that there was no way to cooperate. Sheila suggested they can provide him with some information about Ophelia's research, in return for his help in rescuing their friend. Cyrus said he wasn't interested in Ophelia's research. Milligan then asked him why he was there at all. Cyrus revealed he had a little duty to attend to, which was to be present at Ophelia's funeral. Suddenly, the water trembled, and the Chimera emerged. Milligan remarked that she expected Ophelia wouldn't leave this place unguarded, emphasizing that the Chimera would first attack anyone with high magical energy. Then, Milligan crossed over in her boat, entrusting that task to Cyrus and asking him to deal with the Chimera. Cyrus called her a smart girl. Moments later, Milligan said they would have perished if Sheila hadn't intervened. Here, Nana asked Oliver what Cyrus meant about Ophelia's funeral. Oliver explained that when magic consumes its spellcaster, a visitor arrives to witness their final moments. This visitor is known as the last visitor. On the other hand, Carlos asked Alvin if he thought Ophelia remembered their first meeting when they came to Kimberly. Alvin agreed that she must remember. He certainly wouldn't forget, as the students spoke about Ophelia, claiming she was descended from succubus demons and that her scent was irresistible. Then they began gossiping about her, stating she could bear a child for anyone and could also create magical beasts. After that, Ophelia sat with Carlos, who was surprised she had not made any friends yet. She told him she could call any man she wanted, but she didn't need friends. At that moment, Alvin entered, and Carlos asked him to introduce himself to Ophelia. While Alvin conversed with Ophelia, he felt her scent affecting him. He managed to control himself with a spell, stating her fragrance was stronger than he expected. Alvin struggled for 2 months, every time he encountered Ophelia, relying on spells to keep himself in check, because whenever he inhaled her scent, he was affected. Once, he blocked Ophelia's way, telling her he finally managed to overcome her scent. Then he reached out his hand to her, asking her to always be by his side. Subsequently, Alvin introduced her to his other companions, Lasidi and Tim, explaining they maintained the Academy's order and helped those in trouble. Ophelia found it strange there were only 4 of them, and Carlos explained they were trying to recruit new people, but they left quickly. Tim mentioned that 60% of the reasons were related to Lasidi. Then Carlos asked Ophelia if she could assist them, to which she replied that she could brew simple potions and use basic healing magic. Alvin asked if she could heal burns. The scene shifted, and Alvin cast a fire spell. Ophelia worriedly asked if he was okay. He replied that he was told he couldn't properly use the amount of magical energy he was born with. Ophelia reassured him that no matter how many times he burned, she would always be there to heal him. Alvin thanked her, and then Ophelia joined the team, starting to lend her support. Back to the present, Alvin stated that he was always hasty in the past. Carlos assured him that even so, their team had grown thanks to him. Alvin said he failed to protect Ophelia. Carlos insisted that what happened to Ophelia was not his fault. Alvin told him he should have taken care of her as her older colleague. Then he recalled when many students came to join his team and asked Ophelia for help in choosing the new members. After that, the students cornered Ophelia and accused her of using her perfume to control Alvin. She tried to explain, but they labeled her a tease who only arouses the boys. Ophelia asked if they would respect her once she grew strong. They assured her they would. At that moment, Ophelia drew her sword, releasing an immense energy that left them all stunned in front of her. After that, she sat calmly, only for Lasidi to ask how many members she had seduced by spreading her scent this way. She questioned if he couldn't resist her either. Returning to reality in Ophelia's workshop, Pete seized the opportunity and escaped from the workshop using Albright balls. After completely leaving the workshop, Pete threw the distress ball, hoping someone would see it and come to his aid. In that moment, Alvin's companions noticed Pete's signal. Meanwhile, Carlos and Alvin hurried on the other side to reach Ophelia's workshop, and Gwen and Shannon were running on their path, hoping time wouldn't run out. At the same time, Pete was about to lose consciousness, starting to see shadows of his friends while feeling like he was falling into some kind of realm. But he soon woke up, surprised to find himself with his friends. Oliver threw himself at him, embracing him and praising him for his great work. As Pete processed what was happening, just when he returned Oliver's hug, Ophelia suddenly appeared, stating that everyone seemed to be gathered there. She then asked if what they were seeing was a dream or reality and confronted Pete, revealing that she discovered he was gender flipped. She told him she had apparently found someone with a rare gift. Ophelia then asked Milligan what she planned to do with those students. Milligan responded that her kind little classmates wanted to help her rescue their friend, and as their older classmate, she couldn't refuse their request. Ophelia informed her that she had always hated this different side of her, even though she wasn't that different. Milligan raised her index finger, telling her they were indeed similar and would like to ask her if Favorto let them go in exchange for not interfering with what she was doing. Milligan tried to convince Ophelia by saying that releasing just one person like Pete wouldn't hurt her. Ophelia's eyes lit up as she asked Milligan if she thought she was still speaking to a human like herself. At that moment, everyone was stunned. Ophelia told them she had reached the peak of her magic, but was only looking for the right place to start. She then placed the blade on her hand and began reciting some spells. Milligan quickly drew her blade and ordered our heroes to counter Ophelia's spell swiftly. But Ophelia's spell had already begun to take effect. She surrounded herself with a large aura of magical energy that Gwen and Shannon could see from a distance. Gwen then said Ophelia had already started, while on the other side, Ophelia continued chanting her spells until she completed what she wanted entirely. Ophelia created a world entirely isolated from the outside, governed only by the spellcaster's laws, and our heroes became prisoners within this world. Nevertheless, Milligan admired Ophelia's achievement, saying that while there are different ways for a sorcerer to be consumed by their magic, only a few sorcerers have reached the stage of the great song. Milligan then closed her eyes, noting that Ophelia had managed to reach that despite her young age. Meanwhile, Cornwallis and Lynette arrived at the same place, where Sheila wondered why Cornwallis was there. Cornwallis replied that she came to rescue Faye. Milligan then commented that they might now be settled inside Ophelia Salvador's womb, as it seemed that Ophelia rejected the goal of creating the perfect life form and reached her own conclusion. Milligan Milligan continued by saying that it was too late to save them now, and no one could rescue them unless Ophelia reversed her spell herself or died. She then told them they definitely knew what to do about it now. Sheila nodded, and then Milligan told them that was good and ordered them to line up. She asked Lynette to set up a barrier while Oliver informed the others that Milligan and Sheila, with their fiery powers, were the essence of their attack, and they would rely on them. Therefore, their mission would be to keep the enemy away from Milligan and Sheila. On the other side, Tim and Lasiti were walking on the third layer, telling each other that Olivia had finally succeeded in isolating herself from the world, and they could no longer see her. Back with Ophelia, Milligan asked her how it felt when magic consumed her. Ophelia replied that it felt dreadful, just as she had expected, but the good thing was that she would stay to watch them all perish. Milligan told her she would have a lot to do before that. Then she provocatively remarked to Ophelia that she wouldn't blame her if her first love turned out to be a disaster, as she knew she was more like a swamp snake. Yet, Alvin resembled a unicorn, making it impossible for that love to succeed, and if it did succeed, the best she could achieve was stealing his seed. At that moment, Ophelia became furious and lashed out at Milligan. Milligan then ordered Sheila to attack, and Sheila unleashed her magical spell. At the same time, Milligan revealed the basilisk eye and swiftly rushed towards Ophelia to her chamber, telling her that she was still human after all she had done, as evidenced by how much her words troubled her. But Ophelia quickly dispelled her petrification and bound Milligan with her blood tendrils, surprising her by stating she hadn't been affected by petrification curses for a long time. Milligan told her she was a joke, because despite being on the verge of reaching the highest levels of magic, she was still obsessed with the regrets of the past, like a sweet virgin. Ophelia remarked that she seemed determined to die in the most horrible way. Then she remembered her encounter with Alvin, where he had asked her about the companions she had kidnapped. Ophelia threw them on the ground in front of him and Carlos, stating they were no longer suitable for use as a womb for the Chimera. Alvin told her that the darkness of the cave had infected her heart. He drew his sword, asking her to raise her blade as well, because she would pay for what she had done. In the meantime, Ophelia told everyone that she regretted nothing. At that moment, the Chimera eased its fight a little, so Oliver ordered Nanau to take charge of attacking Ophelia, while he rushed to ignite the Chimera. Cornwallis also flew on her broomstick to fight off other Chimera, but the Chimera launched its attack on our heroes, causing Oliver to fall into a gap and almost plummet during his flight. Meanwhile, Nanau penetrated Ophelia's aura after taking down everything in her path from the Chimera. She then reached Ophelia with her blade, demanding her to prepare for death. But our heroes were soon shocked to see Nanau fall to the ground in front of them. Oliver approached her, urging her to hold on. Nanau apologized to him, saying that Ophelia was just a child, and she hesitated to raise her sword against a crying child. Here, Sheila apologized to Pete, saying she had failed to protect him. Pete reassured her that she had come to save him in the end. At that moment, Ophelia collapsed in tears, wondering when was the last time she shared her feelings with someone like this. Then Carlos and Alvin arrived just in time. A hole then opened in Ophelia's world, allowing Alvin and Carlos to enter. Carlos approached Ophelia, telling her he would give her everything he had. He then removed a necklace from around his neck and threw it towards Ophelia. Oliver wondered what was happening, and Alvin explained that Carlos's family and Ophelia had a pact, meaning Carlos would accompany Ophelia if magic consumed her. Alvin continued to say that Carlos had resistance against all types of sexual magic. Meanwhile, Carlos remembered when he promised Ophelia before that he would always make her smile. In the present moment, Carlos approached Ophelia and hugged her, apologizing for not being able to keep that promise. He confessed to her that he had always loved her. At that point, Alvin bid farewell to Carlos, and Carlos did the same. Then Carlos clasped his hand in Ophelia's, who asked him not to ever leave her. Ophelia's world crumbled, and the atmosphere returned to normal. Oliver met Gwen and Shannon, where Shannon came up to him, asking him to return to the surface, while Gwen told him they came for him. After they returned to the surface, Katie ran to hug Pete. Our heroes then raised their swords high again, forming a sword flower, and life returned to normal in Kimberly. Katie continued to teach Marco, while Guy kept cooking, and Nanau always chased Oliver to learn spells.